City Council to order. Please rise for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Please be seated. Item number 2 is the invocation. For that, our friend, Reverend Dennis Hudson. Welcome, sir.
Appreciate the privilege, and I'll get right to it because we need to pray. So, Father, we just want to come this evening. First of all, Lord, we want to say thank you for the beautiful day. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate something nice like this. Lord, we too often want to complain. This year's been a year that makes us want to complain even more. And so we ask that you would forgive us for our complaints when you give us nice things, and we should be appreciative. This evening, Father, there's a lot of business to be done. I look at the agenda and I feel for the council because there's a lot of things that have to be said and done that are difficult. So we just ask for extra wisdom, extra endurance. And Lord, we thank you that we have people that are willing to give the time and effort to guide this city. And we thank you that we have the opportunity to come together and join our hearts in prayer to you because you're the one that's in charge. Because of that, we ask you to end this pandemic. Watch over everybody until it's over. I know the cases are skyrocketing, Father, and you do too. We just ask that you'd provide the vaccine in a hurry. Lord, we pray this because you're our only hope. And we pray this because we trust you. And we thank you for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Item 3 is audience participation. So if there's an item on the agenda you wish to discuss, please see the City Secretary. You are absolutely allowed to speak. Anyone and everyone is. I'd like to welcome the folks watching online. Well, I hope somebody's watching online. If you are, please shoot us a note. Tell us how the video and audio reception is. If you have a question after the meeting, please contact the city staff. They'd be happy to answer your question. So welcome. I'd like to remind everyone we do have a full agenda, full meeting tonight, so let's move efficiently and quickly, but cover everything in depth. So, and also please silence your devices, cell phones, etc., so we can have a nice quiet meeting. Moving forward, item number 4 is the consent agenda. I've had a request to remove item H, H as in helicopter, from the agenda. So we will go A, action regarding minutes from November 3rd, B, action regarding cancellation of December 15th meeting, C, action regarding acceptance of quick claim deeds from Sabine Valley, D, action regarding setting date for public hearing on update to land use assumptions, E, action regarding acquisition of permanent drainage easement, F, action regarding acquisition of permanent drainage easement, G, action regarding building improvement grant agreement with Sunshine Playhouse, skip H, I, action regarding agreement with Spyglass Group for audit, and J, action regarding interlocal agreement with Tarrant County for construction expansion of the parking lot north end of Willow Creek Park. Questions, comments on the rest of these items?
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, H can be acted upon separately, just pulled for me to be able to abstain.
Pull for discussion. Any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion on all of them except for H.
Mayor, I make a motion we approve everything but H, and we'll do that afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Valerie. Charlie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, are not. Let the record reflect we do have a quorum, a full house this evening. All right, so item H. I believe Mr. Farr was going to excuse himself for this one.
I'll just sit here, no action, abstain.
Okay. So H is action regarding building improvement grant for El Pasito LLC for the project on 124 McElroy. Keith.
This was an item that brought forward to y'all a couple of weeks ago. Executive sessions talk about the building improvement grant for El Pasito. They're located on 124 West McElroy, and this was to
Okay. Council, any questions on this item? This is one we did discuss in executive session, so any questions? If not, I will entertain a motion for H.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Agenda H as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Cindy, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Excellent. Thank you, Keith. Moving forward, item number 5. Julian Lambert, front and center. Presentation by our friend, Julian Lambert. Welcome, y'all.
Mr. Mayor, city council members, friends, everybody in Saginaw, it's finished. The book that we started, Essentials, is now for sale on Amazon for the entire world to see our tremendous society that we've built here in Saginaw. We just donated our first one to the library right before this, where we had some yummy lemon bars. Thank you, Councilmember Big Horse. Thank you all of you, Gabe, Janice, everybody. Every person in this room almost had something to do with this book. And to date, I can't find another city who has it. So I really want to thank you, really, for indulging us. You didn't even know really what I was doing. I can't say that I really know what I was doing, but it's done. And it's a beautiful book about beautiful people in a city I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Before I leave, I had a long speech, but I know y'all are really busy with like real things. Valerie, I'm going to call you Valerie and not Councilwoman Junkersfield. I called her and Cindy and I said, I don't know anybody to ask, but I really am compelled, I'm driven to do this book. Well, many of y'all got the phone calls, didn't you? Yeah. Oh, Valerie got right on it in the middle of taking care of all those kids and her life and the pandemic and masks and stuff. You are instrumental in making this happen. And I want to publicly and on the record tell you thank you very much for all of your assistance.
Thank you for doing
God
this.
bless us all. Let's get through this. And now I'm going to move so you can do real work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, guys. All right, so she said it's available on Amazon, so I encourage everybody out there to order it right away. I will order mine tonight when I get home. Yes, ma'am. It's always good to say yes, ma'am, to Miss Julian. I will. All right, item number 6, presentation by our mural artist, Adam Davenport.
How's it going, y'all?
Welcome.
Mayor, oh, go ahead.
Well, I guess I could get to the podium. I'm better at painting than actually speaking, so, but I would like to start off thanking every one of y'all for support for the other murals, because it's been, the community's been such a, just really enjoyed coming up and interacting with me and seeing the murals of the history of Saginaw, and I can tell everybody's been very positive and about having the history of Saginaw painted on the buildings downtown. So I appreciate every one of y'all being supportive of the arts. So, but with that, I guess this is an exciting new project that's on a way bigger scale. And Gabe and Keith were talking about the silos, and so I came up with a project. It's such a like it's on another scale. So yeah, here's a couple of different ideas. One with Bob Wills, since he's from this area. He was what I intended first off being like a gigantic 180-foot fiddle player, which would be the side of the silo would be such a prominent piece of art that basically like is huge advertisement for the city of Saginaw, showing off this one, or I have a hummingbird as well. Yeah, with probably more of a universal type theme. Yeah, it would stand like 16,500 square feet, and each petal of probably be the largest bluebonnet ever painted in Texas. I think is what, and then of course the hummingbird. So I was trying to think of something that would really put the attention on Saginaw with murals, and I would think it would be really cool to have a bluebonnet on this type of scale. You can see a 7-foot door in the very bottom corner, and it just sort of shows how gigantic it would be. It would be probably the most prominent mural probably painted in Texas, I would think, because I haven't seen any murals on this scale. And the city of Saginaw is is in a position, having these silos, having really big blank canvases. You can go crazy with all kinds of different art, and so Saginaw could be really put on the map with murals. And I don't know. I can ramble on and on, but was there any questions? Or I can talk about art all day, but
Tell us logistically how this would work, how you would do this, something of this magnitude.
well, the first thing you would have to get start off with a 180-foot man lift boom and paint the top of it and go down.
Okay.
And because they're so expensive to rent out, time is of the essence. So I would start off with the most expensive boom that can get to the top, and then work down and trade out like a 150-foot boom, and then you work down probably to like a 100-foot boom. And yeah, just all on a boom, and maybe have a lifeline at the top, like coming off of the building. So if the thing does, like it gets windy up there, I can promise you that. Being at those heights, you would sort of want to have safety of a backup of a rope attached to the top where you're sort of lanyard in. But yeah, basically the biggest boom lift you can rent, and not be afraid of heights and that type of thing. So start at the top. You would have to. I could get into how to paint it. I mean, you could use. Basically, have to prime and then paint. Literally, the painting would probably be about 3 paintings in one, because for the longevity, it would last at least 10 to 20 years.
Okay.
Maybe have fresh ups with some of the bright colors. So I'll paint it in a way that it will last the longest possible, and it can be always come back and refreshed. So yeah, big boom lifts.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are they going to do something with the hiccups all over that, or
The hiccups?
all those little dots? It looks like it has chicken pox.
Oh,
I'm just
well, that's
curious.
part of, yeah, that's all there. I was thinking, there's another picture I sent them. It has the actual pieces shaded, like the bird's actually popping off the wall. And to actually have those pock marks and stuff sort of have this optical illusion of actually leaving them for the most part. Some of them can be painted out, but usually that's just patch marks on the building itself. So to have, like, you wouldn't want, for me personally or artistically, I wouldn't paint everything out being a gray, because you wouldn't have this optical effect of like a hummingbird and the bluebonnet popping off of the wall.
Right.
So there, have another one where it has a shading, the shadow of the hummingbird and the bluebonnet on the building, so it really looks like it's just flying right next to the building. So it'd be a pretty neat way of painting in contrast to the building itself. So I don't know. So I guess, anyway, I don't know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Just a couple comments about Adam. One, friendliest guy this side of the Mississippi. I mean, anybody can go up to him when he's painting, and he's educated us all in art. So when he was painting the first fire station mural, he's painting the second right now. I kept seeing him I'd take my kids to racetrack to get frozen yogurt, and I'd see him look at how the sun was setting on the silos, and he kept saying, it's really cool. We've got to think about something here. So I just want to, this is just for conversational purposes. Process-wise, we would still, Atterbury Elevator, of course, owns this. We would have to bring any conceptual design to them to approve. We'd follow the same path as far as the lease agreement, and then pay for the installation, the actual painting. We've talked, if there's interest to do something of this scale, of paying out over time through beautification funds, because it's a substantial expense. I just can't tell you, short of going up there yourself, how massive it would be. You'd have to kind of get off McElroy in the parking lot to get an idea of the scale. But anyway, I think, maybe 70% with the mural now there by Jack in the Box.
Yeah, I'm over the hump 50% wise. I'm on to the fun stuff almost.
Yeah.
Like another, I was trying to touch on like how painting is, especially with murals being outside, you have to build them up like foundation wise with all the primers, and the surface is what needs to be sealed up where your painting lasts the longest. So I'm thinking with the silos, they're probably pretty good, and it's concrete, so there really would be a nice surface to paint on overall. And the scale of this thing is so gigantic. I mean, it's probably could see it from Fort Worth from one of the skyscrapers with a telescope, I would think, And coming in 820 overpass coming heading this way, you could see a mural on this thing from even miles away. So even coming into town, it would just be this prominent piece for the city to show off. And I just and one of the other things I added, it's not on one of these, is the wheat stalks by the city by the lettering of Saginaw at the top. We added that the other day, some grain stalks. But the lettering, and it would be like a really nice calling card for the city. This is Photoshop, so the real painting would actually pop even more, so to speak. I can tell you all that.
So the beautification committee met, and Keith's the staff liaison. My understanding is they're supportive of the concept and wanted to move it forward. What we're looking for you is, general guidance if we want to, go forward, talk with Atterbury, get estimates or better estimates, renting the boom lift and that sort of thing, and, mapping out a process forward.
So is that the two pictures that you're talking about, this one and then Bob Wills?
Yeah, there were two ideas.
Oh, okay.
Me personally lean towards the Bluebonnet with the hummingbird.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to paint Bob Wills at some other at another location, even the Doughboys too. Like we have a bunch of other subject matter too, but I think a hummingbird with the Bluebonnet for this in particular site would be really
It'd be very
prominent.
eye-catching, yeah.
Yeah, eye-catching.
It would
with
draw,
the
it would be
colors
a draw, yeah.
Yeah, and the scale is so gigantic. It's colossal. I can't even. I think the hummingbird's eye would be 3 foot across. You could put every attention to detail. It'd be like hyper-realism on that scale. Every feather, every petal. Each petal is probably 12 foot tall. So you can really make this thing three-dimensional and pop off. And with the texture of the actual silos themselves, that painting will just pop off even more, leaving those pot marks and that type. And it's a good way to map out the actual painting itself. That's another trick as well. So it's all hand-painted from scratch. There's no secret tricks, really, except, not being afraid of that. Do I, sir?
No paint by number?
No. Try not to, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a gigantic paint by number by eyeball. But anyway.
Mary, go ahead.
There you have.
I can speak for the council and the city as a whole that we're all so impressed with the work that you do. And, that would be a wonderful addition to the city and so colorful and perhaps even cause some businesses to want to come here, like sit-down restaurants. Because I think it would attract a lot of people just to even come to look at it. So I think it's beautiful. And, of course, the Bob Wills would be a good historical
Yes.
thing, but since we do have several historical ones, I think something like this would be good. And then if we do Bob Wills on another surface sometime, could you make it more colorful and have him have colorful clothes on?
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was kind of drab, but
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
that's just beautiful. I hope we will be able to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I think it would give it, like, this would be a destination piece. Like,
Right,
It
yeah.
really, it'll be such a monumental piece of art. I've never painted anything this big, which I'm excited to do,
Mm-hmm.
tackle a challenge like this. It's a destination where people drive by and say, hey, it will create a lot of buzz.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, hey, come, over here and see Saginaw, what they're doing, and be a gigantic piece advertising saying Saginaw's here and we're open for business and
Right.
we're a flourishing community. And people just driving by, it'll just, I don't know, brighten their day or give them inspiration. Just
Yeah.
something for them
I
to
think it
see.
would be
And,
great.
yeah, something special. You can have bragging rights, I guess, over Dallas and Fort Worth because I don't think that the only, like, I'm from Louisiana, and Shreveport, Louisiana has some they're not this big, but you can see them from I-20 when you pass through. There's a lady with a big orb. I don't know. But it's super realistic, and it was painted about 20 years ago, and now it's finally starting to fade a little bit. But every time I pass through, that's what I look at. It's not the boardwalk or the casinos. It's like always I want to look at this mural when I'm trying to drive by people and not crash, So I think it's important, And I grew up in Vicksburg, Mississippi, where the Civil War monuments and all that history. And so I grew up understanding that that's very important for a community to have the arts and especially like painting the history of Saginaw. It's been really, really fun to see, showing the younger generations the grocery, Green's Grocery and the firemen, and showing a little section of what Saginaw used to be. So I'm just excited to be here and paint for y'all, and it's been an honor and privilege. And so anyway.
And another fact, I saw him painting out there a week ago, I think, and we had a conversation, and he happened to mention that he is also a sculptor.
Yes.
And I know that we have some opportunities in the future maybe to have some sculpture done, so, I was interested to hear about that too.
Yeah, I think we've talked about the new fire station having some prominent piece of bronze. And I'm a welder from doing bronze work too, so I could do whatever saws or
I think there's
fabrication of that.
I think there's definitely opportunities, and it's kind of like a friends and family plan. So he happens to have a cousin, Mr. Albritton, there that's local, so we can have our own artist in residence, and just keep him busy for several years. So long as Travis will put him up for a while. So
That's right.
We thought we were going to have to rent a house or an apartment for him, but Travis helped us out a little bit.
I'm gonna have to get him. I'm gonna have to cook for him or buy him
There you
some
go.
steaks or whatever, keep him happy. But yeah, I've always I've been self-employed doing painting and art. Just to say a little bit about myself. I painted the governor of Mississippi when I was 19. It's in the capital of Jackson, in their Hall of Governors. And it got me in the portraits when I was at 19. So it's like way over 20 years ago at this point. But I've made a career at art, and it's nothing glamorous. It's all about paying the bills and all that. But realism is where my forte is at. So when I can do murals on a big scale, it's been so much fun and a challenge to do something that's not this big, for profit collections and stuff. So it's been really fun to do something for the public. on large scales where it's accessible. And public sculpture, I like bronzes. I do full life bronzes as well. So I'm excited. So anyway, any more?
Council, other questions, comments? Yes, Cindy.
Yeah. I'm going to talk to you while you're here because I am not going 180 feet in the air. And the fact that you're from Taylor and you're my rival team, we talked before I graduated from Georgetown.
Right.
I'll still talk to you. But your work is phenomenal, and I truly appreciate it.
Thanks.
I was looking at your presentation, and when I got to the bluebonnet and the hummingbird, I kept trying to scroll down because all I could see on the side of that building was a train engine coming at me. I thought that would be kind of cool, too.
Yeah.
Since we're trains and grains.
Train and grain. I've thought about trains a lot, like for the last year, really, since we tossed out the silo idea. I would love to paint trains. I painted a train for Taylor, like the Taylor Station train in Taylor. Yeah, we have, like I was saying again, like Saginaw is so unique, having huge, literally blank canvases that we can have a field day with, really. I mean, it's a unique place that you have that opportunity to have artwork like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we have so many ideas we can go wild with, I would think. So
Yeah, imagine a 180-foot engine coming straight at you.
that was my first idea, was having a train coming out of the wall. Like I like optical art. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, Council, other comments, questions?
That's what we're known for, trains and green.
No, I think it's a great idea. I want to figure out how we can make this happen.
Absolutely.
I think it's I'd like to get some more information and see how we can pay for this and who can pay for what. But is council okay with proceeding the investigation and see?
Yeah.
Go the next step on this? We're not approving anything tonight, but we're sort of giving the go-ahead to staff to look into it and get some more details. Thumbs up, everybody?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts.
Appreciate
Look forward to working with you some more.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. Thanks.
All right, so now we are at number 7. Item number 7 is Farmers Market at Saginaw Springs Switchyard update. For that, Trey Harper, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are thankful for this partnership between the City of Saginaw and Community Link. Community Link, as most of you know, is the largest food pantry in northwest Tarrant County and housed right here in Saginaw. I remember when I moved to Saginaw and began work at Community Link, I heard murmurs of a farmer's market, and I thought it would be a great partnership and that we deal with food, and the city cares about creating community places and a positive experience. We have one regular market left this year. It's this Saturday, and then we have our Christmas market on December the 5th. We've done some hard work around PR and social media, branding, and creating policy that strives to maintain a level of excellence that should make Community Link and the City of Saginaw proud. The market's been a huge success, even during a pandemic. I think it's sort of been a good meeting place to see people that we don't see often anymore. Before the market coordinator, Hannah Walker, speaks, I would like to present, and I submitted it a little late, but the boring yet important part, which is the statement of activity. As you know, y'all, much like us, are very transparent in what you do, and we have been really good stewards of the funds through our partnership. We have a net revenue of $10,000, but part of that is due to the fact we were 3 months late opening. So we have budgeted well, and it's been a huge success. So I'm going to invite Hannah Walker to speak briefly about the market's future, and we have a short video too.
Hey everyone. So we just wanted to highlight the success of the market during a pandemic. When we began, we did not know what to expect. Never been through a pandemic before. Didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if there would be interest for people to come to the market, and the community has really showed up. They've showed interest. We've had, busy market days, and we've had lots of vendors come over the market season. And we have a video to show you guys to kind of, if you haven't been to the market, paint a picture of what it's like.
My name is Hannah Walker. I am the Farmers Market Coordinator, and I also help with events here at Community Link. We wanted to open in April, but it was not safe yet to do so. So we pushed our soft opening to June 20th. And we had a huge turnout that we were not expecting. We only had 12 vendors, and many of them sold out that day. People were very excited about the farmers market, and we have had a great response. At this point, we are almost to 30 vendors, so we have really grown a lot in just a few months. They say that they really love our farmers market because the people who come to this market, they don't just walk around and browse, but they actually buy. So, of course, that is part of the draw for the vendors is they know if they come to this market, they are going to make sales. The market has definitely helped them get clients that return every time, that order from their website. They've made a lot of connections with the community specifically. So it's definitely helped their business. I know like a few specifically have said that they, have a client base now because of the market.
Here at Cafe Guadalajara, what we do a lot is we roast coffee. We're a roasting house. Our business was mostly online and as well as little craft shows. Now with the farmers market, we see that we're up in it. We see our name out there. We see people reaching out to me. It is a wonderful experience, and just getting to know people. The favorite thing about the market, besides the wonderful people that we have there, which are the vendors, are in the community. Is the people that come out and support the small businesses, the small farmers.
So we think we see about 1,000 people per market. Every other farmers market we have, we're able to do a canned food drive. We've had a great turnout every time. We have so many people in the community that bring a lot of canned goods and things that we need here. The feedback we've received from a few people who have attended the market is they love it. They're excited that we have it. There's so much to choose from that it just really is a great shopping experience because you really can't come to the market and leave with nothing. There's something for everyone there, and that's part of why it's so enjoyable is, no matter what age or who you are, you can find something at the market and leave with something you love. People are excited about it. They're always asking us when it is, when's the next one, who's going to be there. It just really is a good way to bring the community together, and it's fun, and people are excited about it. So as long as people are wanting to come, we will be there.
Very nice.
Then just a few things to add. For this upcoming season, we are planning on having SNAP. So that will give more opportunity for the community to get fresh fruit, produce, household items. We would love to do larger events. We would love to have things that the community can participate in. Of course, that all depends on the way COVID goes next year. And that is about it.
Yeah, so we are going to have one more market in the Christmas market, and then we're going to take a couple months to evaluate. We'll do surveys with vendors and community members, and hopefully open to a bigger, better market, and hopefully it'll be safer to do some bigger things. Are there any questions?
So is that 30 vendors you having every farmer's market now? Or is it just going up to 30? Or can you have more? Or are you having more?
Yeah, so we're sort of space limited around 30. We are kind of stretching it for the Christmas market. And so what happened, we have a waiting list, obviously,
Really?
because of regular vendors. And the waiting list was so long, I said, well, what if we just had a mega market and invited everyone in? Part of the reason
That's the Christmas one, is the mega?
And so it's going to have 60 plus. And so it's going to be all in the fields there too. Part of the reason for the waiting list also is We allow, it's a 60-40 split is the goal. 60% is consumable goods, so fruits, vegetables, food items, and then 40% crafts. And then we also have a rubric which is laid out in our handbook, which lays out our policy. And we try to have one of, not many more than one of a certain type. There are a few exceptions as far as bakery items.
I think it's no more than 3 of the same.
Thank you. And then, so that is how we kind of evaluate and choose.
Okay.
Other questions, council? Oh, Cindy, go ahead.
I've talked with a lot of people that are excited about the community, about the farmers market. And several of those people said, they've tried to get in. They said, you're full. The waiting list is long, so they don't even bother to try to fill out an application for the waiting list.
Sure.
But they really want to market their wares as well. Have you considered doing this every weekend and then maybe changing vendors every other weekend?
Yeah, so that
to try to get a
will
larger.
That will come up in our evaluation and survey, because obviously farmer will be at the goal, and so if the farmers feel like they could do it, we would probably extend, and that's part of the taking a few months off to see if we could, if it's viable for the community. Will they show up? Will the citizens show up every week?
Well, and I think they will, and I understand maybe bringing the same farmers in, because you probably won't have that big of a
There's not
variety
that many choices,
every
right.
weekend. But the crafters, I would like to see some rotation in those so we can have some new ideas, And like I
Sure.
said, maybe if you
Well,
had
and to speak to that, if there were new ideas, they would be admitted. There are some things we don't have, like a candle maker. If a candle maker called us up, they wouldn't get to move to the front of the line because we don't have that. So if it's a duplicated item, that's where maybe the struggle is, and we are limited in space.
Well, and I know that some of the people I talk to aren't going to brag too much about what they do or,
Sure.
Talk about the uniqueness. And evidently there was a waiting list for the Christmas event as well.
Yeah, we opened it up, and about a week later had to move to a waiting list.
Yeah, because a couple of people I talked to said they couldn't even get into the Christmas thing. When we were told, here, take an application, fill it in, so you can get to the Christmas event, they couldn't get to that either.
We still have to maintain safety, and so many vendors is pushing it.
Yeah, and I understand, but, and these people live in Saginaw, so I would like to see, I would like to see them get priority because they live in Saginaw.
Yeah, and that's part of our rubric, the closer you are,
and
the
I
more
saw
priority.
that. But, if they can't get past, can't even get in the front door, that's a problem. What was the other thing I was going to say? I can't remember. You're not helping me, Todd.
It'll come to you, I'm sure. We'll come back.
I'll think of it in a
All
minute.
right, other questions, folks? Well, we got our Community Link friends. Oh, Mary, go ahead, Ms. Copeland.
I just wanted to congratulate you on your success, and it has really, really been very successful. And I know you limited the hours in the summer because of the heat.
Right, or we switched them, to
Yeah, early. And so have you thought about maybe in the springtime having longer hours?
Yeah,
Do the vendors
That's part of the
want you
problem.
to have longer?
The vendors don't want to be there all day either.
They
And
don't,
many of
yeah.
them sell out, and so.
True.
So we did move it earlier, which helped us a little bit because people were already showing up early anyway, so it kind of made an actual
Well,
start.
this just dawned on me, so I
Sure.
don't know how to
Sure.
handle farmers markets, but I wonder if you could stagger some in the morning and some in the afternoon, and then
Sure.
more people,
That's
more
a
vendors
good idea, Mary. Thank you for that.
could come.
That's helpful.
And try it out and just see
Sure.
if you had enough people coming,
Right.
so that might work.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and while you were talking, I had the same idea, maybe, a set in the morning and a set in the afternoon. One of the things that I love about the farmers market is it shows the success of the unique businesses, and Retail Coach talked to us about that. They said, if Saginaw wants to succeed, they're going to have these unique businesses. The chain things are just not going to work here because everything that's chain is around us already. So I like the fact that we're validating the success of mom and pop businesses.
That's right. Yeah,
So I
that
wanna
Cafe Volcan, he's very local, and his business has exponentially grown because of the market. One other interview that's not in the video, what's her business, sorry?
Chica's Frescas.
She's a Saginaw High student who started a fresh juice business, and if you notice, her booth has changed because she has more capital, and she's really scaled the business. So it's been really neat to watch that happen.
Yeah, Breeze Sweet Treats was one of my daughter's students.
Oh, wow.
And, she was so excited. She said, look, I've done it, I've done it. So it's great. Thank you.
What will be our first market in 21?
That will be dependent on the surveys. That's part of the issue, is checking with the farmers as how early they can start and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And eventually, we would like to see a year-round, if that's sustainable.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, thank y'all. Appreciate it, Craig. Thank you, Hannah. All right, item number 7. Item number 8, consideration action regarding management agreement renewal with Community Link Commission for the operation promotion. I have had a request, and we're going to call an audible on this. We're going to go into executive session to discuss. So I would like city manager and attorney to join us in executive session. So at 6:40, we're in executive session. We will return. better to keep people moving a little bit. Keep you on your toes, maybe? All right, is everybody back? We got everybody? All right, at 6:49, we're back to executive session. I apologize for the slight interruption. All right, so discussing a couple things. We're still on item 8, consideration action regarding management agreement renewal with Community Link Mission for the renewal of the contract. So, had a couple of questions. Patrick, you want to discuss your proposal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd like to look at your rubric that you have published on your website. And I'd like to allow the council to weigh in on that rubric, since it sounds like the majority of the council's concerns is giving preference to Saginaw vendors. And I know that you can't have 14 potholder vendors just because they're from Saginaw. I get that. But what I think would be beneficial for the council is for them to weigh in on the rubric and then attach that rubric as a performance requirement within the contract. Okay? So my proposal is that we table this discussion. We allow Community Link to present that rubric to us, the council, allow us to talk about it here at the dais, and then approve that as an exhibit to this contract that's upcoming. I'm sorry? So was it presented as an exhibit?
Yeah, we didn't think it was part of the agreement. That's the question. I know it's on your website. I've seen it, but I didn't think it was supposed part of the contract. Okay.
It just needs to be an enforceable part of the agreement. That's where I think you're going to get some settling of feathers, is that as long as it's an enforceable part of the agreement and the council has weighed in on the rubric itself, then I see no issue. We feel good about that?
Is everybody okay with that? Oh, Mary, go ahead.
I just wanted to make my opinion known. I think they're already, giving preference to Saginaw residents, and so I don't think it's necessary. So if the majority of the council does, I just wanted to explain why I would not vote for tabling. I just wanted to
Absolutely. Thank
make
you,
my
sure.
reasons known.
Yeah. And Mary, and I appreciate that. And I've read the rubric. I don't know if everybody has read the rubric. I've seen it, and I think that's how they operate right now. It's just not a part of the contract. I think, and to Patrick's point, I think we put that in the contract, it will be clear to everybody, because I don't think the full council has read the rubric and understands how it works. I think once we do, everybody will be a little more comfortable. So, if so, I will entertain a motion to table this item.
May I make a motion that we table the item?
Okay.
Until we get the...
Do we want to say for a certain amount of time, or can we just say indefinitely what we say, Bren?
You can just move to table it, and then we'll
bring it back whenever we're ready.
It's ready. Yes, sir.
Okay, motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Patrick, second. All those in favor of tabling? All those opposed? Thank you, Mary. All right. Thank you, folks. We'll get back to you. Item number 9, consider action regarding a development agreement with Belt Mill, Saginaw LLC, governing the criteria for the property. We know where the property is. So for that, I think it's Gabe.
Mayor and Council, so this project that's coming before you this evening is a result of about 2 years' worth of work. Belt Mill is commonly referred to as the Kranz Farm property. So you may recall we had some meetings well over a year ago to talk about the concept. We're getting close to where it's actually actionable. Went through the Planning and Zoning Committee or Commission, and you'll be taking action later on the zoning piece of it. So the development agreement is, and I'll defer to the city attorney here in a moment, but this development agreement more than likely will be replaced by potential creation of a public improvement district to fund a number of improvements in this development. But since the state legislature has removed some local control, we have to bring this agreement to ensure enforceability of a few items. One of those are the architectural standards and the exterior masonry. We've outlined some parkland dedication, and this is all, again, a placeholder that likely will be replaced by a public improvement district, a project plan, and the funding mechanisms that go with that in the future. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Bryn may add in anything I may have forgotten.
Yeah, I don't have a tremendous amount to add. Frankly, it's a very simple, short agreement that addresses the only two things that really need contractual commitments for. Saginaw does not have a parkland dedication ordinance, so we can't rely on our subdivision ordinance to mandate that these parks be dedicated. 4 parks are being contemplated, and they'll be dedicated within each phase when that phase is platted. As Gabe said, the architectural standards will be contractually agreed to, but they need to be supported by, quote, consideration. And so right now it contemplates waiving the first 10 single-family building permit application fees. Again, that's a placeholder that will be substituted for the creation of the PID. So I don't envision that the fees will in fact be waived. And in fact, one of the last edits to this agreement was the developer applicant asking that we include language in this agreement that the parties endeavor and work towards establishing a PID. So I think certainly that's the direction that both parties are headed.
This agreement does not hold us to a PID. It just is a step in that direction.
That's right. It just says we'll endeavor and work towards that goal, but it does not contractually obligate us to establish one.
And so this agreement is also written so as in the future it could be null and void by another agreement, or made null and void by another agreement.
That's right. And if we do enter into a development agreement associated with the PID, we'll ensure that this agreement is just repealed in its entirety.
Okay. It's also my understanding that these folks don't own the property yet, so if they do not go through with that sale, this becomes null and void? How does that work?
I thought
They have it under contract. They're set to close in December, so I think it'd be full in effect once they're owners of the property.
And frankly, it doesn't commit us to anything. There's no PID that we have to unwind, and so it doesn't have a self-defeating clause to it, but obviously if they don't own the property, then they won't perform, and then we won't waive any building permit fees.
Okay, good. Other questions, council? Mr. Farr?
Yes, sir. Thanks for bringing this presentation tonight. It really helps kind of digest what we're doing there at the north end of our city. Something that we're carving out here, I want to make sure that the council's aware, are the architectural standards in this particular development. There are 3 sets of standards outlined here in the agreement. One is commercial architecture. The other is the residential architectural standards, broken into 2 parts, urban residential and then single family. I think we all know that urban residential is planned to be investment property. It's not planned to be sold to individuals for their own maintenance, for them to take care of. It's intended to have landlords over time. So I think it's important we talk about the building standards associated with urban residential. So if you look at page 10 of the agreement, you'll find that this particular section of standards has the lowest percentage of masonry requirement of the 3. The thing about masonry is that it's a 30 to 50 year system. Other systems are not 30 to 50 years unless they're well maintained. And if you look around the city of Saginaw at investment property in particular, and I'm talking about apartment complexes in Saginaw, any of them that are over 30 years old have reached a Class C status. Basically, it is a difficult to maintain piece of property. It holds a value to the citizens only based upon what it costs to maintain, meaning that folks will move into it knowing that, okay, it's not the best looking piece of property, but it's affordable. Now, I want us to all think about what we're going to do in this Belt Mill development is put 1,000 units up there. And what will those 1,000 units look like in 30 years? What will we be dealing with on those 1,000 units in 30 years? Do we want to give up on a standard for this urban residential architecture. And we want to give standards away, saying, we'll only live with 75% masonry, the rest of it some other material. And quite frankly, I don't see where a secondary material is even specified under urban residential. So that would be a question that I would have for the developer when they're ready to present. So I'd just like for us to think about what we are doing on the multifamily component of this development. And what is that multifamily component going to look like in 30 years? The rest of it seems to me to be very consistent with what we have built out around the city. The commercial architectural standards are very consistent. I hate EFIS, but that's personal. It can be maintained, but it is a part of Section B of commercial architectural standards. Composite wood panels under commercial architectural standards. I'd like a better definition of composite wood. Composite wood could range anywhere from Trex, which is a high-density wood composite, to medium-density fiberboard, which is very similar to very brittle wood products. I think you guys might know that as masonite. So I'd like to know what composite wood panels means by definition in this agreement. So really the things that stand out to me is what are we giving up on the investment property standards, which is the urban residential architectural standards, and the definition of composite wood panels under Section B of commercial architectural standards.
Would we like the developer to come speak to some of these questions?
Yeah, Doug.
Do you mind if I take this off?
Sure.
Thank
Please
you.
introduce yourself.
My name is Doug Powell. I'm with McAdams. We are a consulting group that's been working with Jim Makins, who's in the audience, who represents the Krantz family, and Don Allen, who is ill tonight but is listening. He wished he could be here. In terms of the building requirements for the urban residential, and Rick can correct me if wrong, your standards for MF2 require 75% masonry, 100% on the front facade, and we've said that we would meet that standard.
Okay, but I don't see 100% on the front facade. I only see 75% in the agreement. No, that's under single family. That's not under urban residential.
Right.
On page 10, Charlie.
And I apologize, I do not have a copy of that right in front of me, but that's what we had committed to, is meeting that MF2 standard. So if we need to write in the 100% on the front facade, that was the intent.
And Rick, that is what.
And I will confirm that, yes, it's 75% masonry, but the front facade, excluding windows, will be 100% masonry. That's the standard, city standard for MF2.
Okay.
The problem, as we've stated, is that's moot. We can't enforce that, so it would have to be in the development agreement, whatever.
It has to be in the development
Right.
agreement.
And so maybe Brent could add that piece in. Again, it was our intent to meet the city's code. Again, the whole reason for the development agreement is because of the new state laws. We're going to voluntarily commit to meeting your standards, the standards that you cannot enforce anymore. In terms of the wood product, that's a good question. What we're envisioning is there's a product that's been used quite a bit. I've seen it. The largest use is for the Star Complex in Frisco. And it's wood system that is not plywood, though it does kind of look like panels or can look like panels, but that's the material that we were talking about that that I've seen used a lot in shopping centers for accent pieces and kind of secondary places. That's the material that we were referring to. And again, the most obvious or the largest regional use that I know of is the Star Complex over in Frisco.
Which those are probably polymer resins. And the trouble with this definition is this definition is the agreement between us, and it says composite wood panels. Composite wood can come in all shapes and sizes.
Yes.
And it can come from the cheapest grade material that's on the earth to the most expensive grade material that's on the earth, and I would like for that to be defined in the agreement.
Right, and when you said that, yes, we do not mean, you probably, particle board is probably a,
It is a composite wood product?
Yes, that was not our intent. That is I think, the nomenclature that they used, we found in other cities' use, and my apologies, we didn't look to define it further, but our intent was, again, that product, not the inferior stuff that you're talking to.
So polymer-based products similar to a Trex material, very high density, very wearable, probably on par with masonry, is what that material is like, can't be defined in this agreement as a composite wood product.
And if you want to substitute language for that, I think we'd be agreeable to that. Again, it was our intent not to open up the door to any wood product.
And so those are the only things that jumped out at me in this agreement, is that the composite wood product is a very broad definition, and the absence of the 100% on the front facade and then 75% on the balance of the elevations in the MF2 standards that exist now.
Brandon, is there any issue with adding that language to this contract?
No, not at all. You can approve it subject to those conditions. Okay. Absolutely.
So the only problem is I don't know off the top of my head what the Trex product is called in the industry, and
Right.
whether or not if there's a definition we can come up with on the fly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just for the sake of, I assume that you guys are going to sell these tracts, and there will be apartment builders come in and build, right?
That's correct.
So if I'm an apartment builder and I see that, that's golden to me. Because, I mean, I can run to town with its composite wood. And that's a very dangerous definition. I want to make sure that we very clearly state that the product is intended to withstand 30 years of wear.
So I think I certainly understand what the intent is. So you could approve that element subject to city manager final approval on the wording. And that gives us the opportunity after tonight to research what the appropriate material might be called or classified, and then coordinate with you, and then I can insert it. So we don't have to have the precise wording this evening.
If the council's okay with that, I mean, it's a conversation outside of this room that would come to me, and I want to make sure the council would be okay with that, or if they want to hear it in the room.
Can you guys be okay with that as well? You'd be
We're
agreeable?
more than fine with that.
Excellent. Thank you. What does the rest of the council think?
Cindy has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy, go ahead. Or Mary?
I was just wondering if the product that you are referencing could be included in all of these descriptions other than composite wood panels, and maybe you would just delete composite wood panels.
Yeah, and
that would still enable you to use this product based on the rest of the wording.
Yes,
Is that
and
true?
I think that's what we're trying to do is substitute a better or more definitive definition for composite.
But I was
wood.
just saying, even if you didn't have that specific definition in there, would that be included in all of the other wording if composite wood panel wasn't in there?
No.
It would not?
No, it
Okay.
would not. And it's also, if it really causes the council heartburn, is we'd also be willing to remove it, knowing that we hope to be back here in a month or so for a new one, that at that time we could do some research and actually put in a better definition. So.
Yeah, so that's a good idea. I mean, we could just simply eliminate it at this point, delete it, and then
I think
that will
that's
give
fine.
us.
And then when you come back,
Yeah.
just better define what that is if you want to broaden the definition. So it's still on the urban residential architecture. Is there a reason that we did not specify the secondary elements? It specifies masonry, but it does not specify what the secondary elements would be. It does not limit them. So we're kind of in the same quandary there.
Originally, the staff was wonderful in working with us, but originally there was a list of secondary materials. And I'm not quite sure why it didn't get copied over into the development agreement.
That's important that we have secondary materials listed here as acceptable because this is an even larger hole, if you will.
So what I attempted to do when this was originally, so the deletions were mine, but what I attempted to do without purporting to be an expert at all on materials is any sentence that suggested that it was optional or that they may do this and it may look like that, I just simply removed because it leads to unrealistic expectations for what may ultimately come. So I only left in the mandatory language. This was negotiated all the way up to the date the packet was due. And so that may have been my over-editing rather than going back and saying, could you reword this? I simply removed sentences that were non-binding because I don't feel that, general prose should be in a contract.
Sure. And I think just under commercial architectural standards, item B, it lists secondary building materials include. And I'm assuming since it doesn't say not but not limited to,
right.
That means it only means these. Right?
Yes.
The legal argument says it only means these.
Correct.
So what I'm suggesting is that we have the same thing below, meaning it only means these.
Certainly.
The same in residential and commercial, the same
Exactly.
identical statement.
Right.
It would be the same.
Right.
Yep.
And if we had the exact same language that is in B underneath urban residential architectural standards as C.
Yes.
Okay. Removing composite wood panels from it as well, and then come back with a better definition, then I'm good.
And then adding the 100% masonry for the
on
front
the
facade.
front elevation and 75% on remaining elevation.
Okay. That's simple enough. I'm happy to do that if Doug's on board.
Yeah, we're happy. And again, I want to say, Brent is absolutely right. This, people worked very hard to keep this on the agenda, and I appreciate everybody's effort to do so.
Absolutely. Council, other questions? I don't want to cut anybody else off. Cindy, you have a question?
And this is probably more for staff than it is for you. When was the last time that we looked at what our standards are? I mean, I know there's been a lot of change in the products and things, just from walking around Home Depot. I mean, are there better products out there for the manufacture of homes that are more environmentally friendly, more with higher insulation qualities than the materials that we have listed here? When was the last time that we've looked at, or do we even update our standards, or do we just follow somebody else's standard?
Can I just add this quickly and then
Sure.
please? Yeah. So during the last legislative session, we were completely preempted from regulating any standards whatsoever. So that may play a role in whether we spent time researching whether they should be updated, because frankly what the statute says is if they're in your ordinance as of September 1, 2019, they were void, null and void immediately. So it's as if they're not in our codes anymore.
Right, but I mean, if we're going to be setting standards, for this developer, then, if there's some better alternatives out there, I'd like for us to have that opportunity to utilize those.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing that Bren just said, that we would be preempted anyway from having a standard. We do have adoption of the Energy Code, which is a performance standard for energy conservation, but as far as exterior materials, interior, I mean, and to answer your question on how often, I'm not sure when the last time the zoning ordinance had a comprehensive rework. So it's way past due. There are several areas that are antiquated, need to be updated.
Now, I'll mention this as well. While we were sitting here this evening, I just pointed this out to Rick. A request for an Attorney General's opinion came in via email during this meeting asking the Attorney General whether that same statute preempts cities from regulating paint color. in addition to the materials. So, yeah, just to give you an idea.
Goes on.
Like I said, I just don't want to lose out on our opportunity to use, better materials that's, one, better for the environment, two, we're not stripping the environment, that sort of thing, an opportunity there. And it sounds like we're kind of limiting ourselves with the way this is written. And again, I don't know enough about the materials, so maybe you do.
Well, I will say that a lot of codes, city codes, were back in the day where brick and stone was the quality material, and there's a lot of things that have come. One of the things that we said, secondary materials, architectural metal, and you see a lot of that nowadays, and you see cedar beams and stuff. And so I do think that there are a few things that have been added to kind of a typical a building, commercial building, that's still quality material that will last. That's probably not in your code. But I do think that through this process, you'll have an opportunity to, the only way you're going to be able to enforce any of those standards is work with a developer. And I think that they have architects, they have the people that can bring forward information to you that you can write into a PD.
I'd be interested in seeing some of those other options. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but
You're just mentioning we will have an opportunity to do that in further steps, to nail down or to find out about other materials. That could come later?
No, I said for other developments.
For other developments.
Yeah, the only way that you can, because of the state law, the new state law, the only way you can impose any kind of material standards is through this process.
Well, I would add to that, what I think I heard him say also that we agreed was that there would be an upcoming, a new development agreement where we would look at it.
That's what I was referring to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we can discuss this further later and nail down things.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't have to nail it down specifically tonight.
We will be back. Yes.
All right, so other questions, council? I think we've beaten this horse pretty well, and I think we've got some good information out. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion with some of these things on it. Mr. Farr, would you like to make a?
You ready for this one? Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the development agreement with the following modifications. Under commercial architectural standards, item B, we strike composite wood panels from the list of secondary building materials. And then under residential architectural standards, the title urban residential architectural standards, we add in 100% of the front-facing elevation shall be masonry. The remaining elevations will be 75% masonry. And then we add the same list as found as in item B under commercial architectural standards. Under urban residential architectural standards, striking composite wood panels as well.
Any questions on that excellent motion? Brandon, are you good with that? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. Questions? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Excellent. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank y'all. Thanks for working with us. Moving forward at 7:18, we're in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding request for conceptual development plan associated with application for plan development zoning with community commercial and single family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For Belt Mill, Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You recall on the 3rd of this month, Don Allen with Lackland Holdings, the developer of the project, made a presentation to go over the conceptual development plan based on feedback that he heard from the council, which we felt was generally positive. We brought that forward to P&Z meeting last Tuesday. They reviewed the conceptual development plan and unanimously approved that to bring forward to council for your consideration. The action tonight is a little bit different than just adoption of a PD ordinance. What this does tonight, in effect, is to approve a conceptual development plan Section 7-1 of the zoning ordinance has a process in place where you can approve a city council conceptual development plan, and then as development occurs, whether it be in phases or in total, they would have to come back through P&Z and council for a shortened approval to give them full entitlement for development of the property. That's so long as they're in conformance with the conceptual development plan. If not, then that purview or review through P&Z and council would take the place of a full public hearing by both bodies. So you're checking the box off, so to speak, for the public hearing part of that, provided that their future plans conform with the concept that you're looking at and approving tonight. And Bren might want to add what I might be leaving out. I would say that, again, there's 5 primary uses in the concept development plan, and that's include the parks, which will be attacked in the development agreement, or is attacked in the development agreement. There's commercial use, multifamily use, and then single-family attached and single-family detached is part of their plan. So the net effect, most of the waivers, most of the changes from the zoning ordinance are changes in setbacks, which will bring the development closer to the street in most cases. So, and I think Doug will probably talk about that, as would be promoting a more walkable community as part of that plan. So I would only add one other item that prior to P&Z we did receive from our mail-out notice, we did receive one information of opposition from Ronnie and Donna Landreth, who I believe live in Barcy. And just to quote their comments, not every piece of land needs to be developed. We just need land. So that's the gist of their opposition. So with that, Doug Powell, I believe, has a PowerPoint again that he would like to walk through with you, unless you have questions of staff.
Go ahead, please.
Again, my name is Doug Powell. I just have a couple slides since we were here just a couple weeks ago, and we wanted to show that we heard you and we were listening. And so this is a revised concept plan, and what we did is we added a half-acre park that just popped up there in the townhouse area. We added an acre park in the single-family portion, and then those 2 ponds. One, remember, was a retention pond on the west, and then the other, the right, the eastern one, was going to be dry. And you all said that we'd like to have them both wet. You see, they're both blue. They're both wet. And so, in the development agreement we just adopted, we said you all can have those for parks. And we've talked to staff about adding amenities to that. Whether that's exercise equipment, informative, educational, tree species, and we'll work with the staff to do that as this project comes forward. So we did make those changes based on what we heard from the council. We also, there's now 2 purple buildings in that core area. Those are to represent the possibility that the city might use one of those, not probably both of them, probably one of them, for a city building. And if not, it'll be part of the development. But we did want to highlight that we continue to talk to staff. We talked to you all about is there a need, and the developer is willing to work with you on doing that if you so desire. And so we colored those in just so you could recognize where those would be, and we think that'd be a great location and help with that area. The other thing we wanted to point out, we redrew, there's some discussion about the buffer on the railroad, and before this graphic went all the way to Saginaw Boulevard, and so what we did is we cut it off, and we said, so where's the main line, the first main line? And at P&Z, one of the commissioners said, there is a side track. That's not shown here, but the main line is shown 25 feet to the property line. There'll be a 6-foot masonry wall. There'll be 40 foot of landscaping. There'll be, in this case, it's the townhouses. There's a 18-foot alley, and a 20-foot setback before you get to the building. You add that all up, and it's 103 feet. And so before, we didn't really show what happened. We didn't show the building. Now we showed the building. We add all those numbers up. And so hopefully that alleviates some of the concern that was raised last time. And we're committed to doing this. I know that there's one more thing I'm leaving out. But again, we wanted you to know that we heard your discussion, and we think that we've addressed all of your concerns. And again, we had great support at the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Can we go back one slide?
Sure.
Excellent. All right, council questions? Yes, Cindy.
Hi, thank you for coming again. A couple of things. Up in the townhome area, in the far northwest corner, you have those 6 townhomes. The 2 leftmost townhomes, what is the distance from the tracks on those?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Those would be closer. But the other thing is, those probably can't be built because they really we don't think meet the fire code. And that's one of those things. It's a conceptual plan versus what's really going to be built out there. And so we're not going to put any house closer than 80 feet to that track per y'all's concerns.
Well, I was wondering if you might be able to move those to where the park area is, and then make that area where those townhomes are sketched in right now, make that the park.
Yes, and we can. And again, I want to reiterate that Gabe, Rick, Bren, they're all great in helping us bring this and getting this to y'all. But it really is one of those that I won't say we ran out of time, but that probably is not the final design for those kind of stated reasons. And that's why we want to make sure that those parks were committed to them in terms of acreage and location, but they could shift, right, in those areas. And I think what you've pointed out is a good design, a better design, and we'll work with staff to do that.
Okay, I'll send you my bill tomorrow.
Send it to Jim.
No, I'm kidding. And I think the other thing, and Patrick mentioned this at the last meeting, was probably more of a tree blind or something to block off Trinity Mills when he's sitting out at the restaurant on the other side of the retention ponds.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if you were going to add more trees to that or not.
Well, that area is going to be landscaped.
Okay.
And, yeah, and I don't know, there is,
I think Gabe can answer part of that question.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, council member, we had a meeting, Keith and I had a meeting with Trinity Industries to talk about the feedback. So as you're aware, the pond, the intent is to create a sense of place where you want to come and eat at a restaurant, use the park amenities. Trinity Industries was receptive to entertaining a fence and screen. Kimley Horn is working on some estimates and some options, so we hope to be able to bring that back to you in the future, present it to Trinity. More than likely, it will be some sort of an incentive agreement.
But it would not be part of the Belt Mill development. It would be part of a separate with Trinity.
Correct. Yeah, it actually would not be on this property. It would be across the street, but we're working on that. It's a Texas two-step. It's step one, and we'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you.
Council, other questions? Yes, Charlie.
I just want to reiterate the fact of up at the townhomes that you will put a bigger buffer in there than what you had. I mean, down at the other end, you've got what, if I remember right on the slide, you had 103 feet.
Right.
You don't want
that's from the
25, 30 foot up at those townhomes. If they're going through there and they have a derailment, they'll be right in the middle of them. So that's what I'm saying. And you did say that you were going to put more room in there?
Well, what we heard is that the distance that y'all were concerned about was having 80 feet. And
Excuse me, let me clarify that. The 80 feet dimension came from the actual derailment just across from Meacham Field in 2018. The debris field was 80 feet from the center line of track. So when I brought that up, it was just to demonstrate what the debris field looks like in a derailment on this speed of track. And 80 feet from the center line is where the debris field spread to. So that's where the 80 feet came from. So I just want to clarify that.
I just want to make sure there's enough buffer room in there that you don't put rail cars back in those townhomes. I mean, this right here looks good.
That's what this is going to be at the townhomes, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but it doesn't show that here of what I'm looking at.
Mr. Mayor, this is a two-part process. This is very much conceptual. So this map is just it's a pretty graphic. The actual nuts and bolts of development will come back through the process later as tracks are engineered and designed. So to Councilmember Tucker's point, that will all be addressed as these items develop out. The general and overarching standards are defined here, but Bryn has proposed a two-part process, of which this is the first one. It generally entitles the land for zoning, but the actual nuts and bolts development will come back through plan review process, where details like you've mentioned will be addressed.
Right. The approval of this zoning ordinance tonight does not entitle the issuance of a single building permit. They have to come back through with the development plan showing the specific detail to your satisfaction.
I just want to make sure.
Certainly.
You don't understand what trains can do.
Right. Well, you've told me some stories. It's disturbing.
All right.
Council, other questions? Mr. Farr?
Yeah, just to be clear, the 103 feet that we're seeing here, that will be put into this document. Is that correct? I think I saw it in here. I don't know that it's dimensioned, but I did see it in the document.
That graphic is in the document. The 103 is not in there.
Okay.
I just put that to add them all up.
So can we go ahead and establish a minimum dimension at 103 feet? Is there a problem with that?
I don't believe so. What we've said is it's a 40-foot buffer, and then you'd have to have a drive aisle or a fire lane back behind there. So I don't think that's an issue to say that the minimum distance from a habitable structure will be 103 feet.
So it looks like the dimensions show from the edge of track to the wall. From the wall, you've got the 40-foot buffer, then you have the alleyway, and then the setback.
Yes, sir.
And that's where you come up with the 103 feet.
Correct.
So those dimensions are provided here in the exhibit.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is stapled to the ordinance.
I'm fine with that. So just a couple of, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what we're doing here. Commercial community. Building height 110 feet, 8 stories. Okay? Just want to make sure we point that out. And I'm not suggesting that's a bad thing or a good thing. I just want to make sure that what we're saying here is that it's okay to build an 8-story building. On urban residential, we're saying that on both multifamily 2 and urban residential, they're 45 feet tall and can be 3 stories. So I just want to make sure that we all know those are the heights that we're guiding here. Do we have any 3-story apartment complexes in Saginaw today?
We do. Mariposa, I believe, is 3-story.
Okay.
Which that would meet the requirement, 45.
Okay. And then the last comment that I had, it's been addressed. That's all.
Other questions? I have one question on the single. Can you go back to the other pretty graphic? Yeah. The single family piece. And I don't know if this is a question for you or for Rick. Is that SF3? What is single family? What are these single family?
Well, what they are is they're a minimum of 4,400 square feet in size, and a minimum of 40 feet by 100 feet. But if you do, 40 by 100, you don't get it. So they'll either be wider, a little bit wider, or a little bit deeper. But those are minimum standards. But the 4,400 is also a requirement for the overall size.
Rick, what is that? Is that single family 3? Which one is that in our code?
SF3 and SF4.
Does SF4 actually go down to that size?
SF4 is it's no longer used in the zoning ordinance, but that's the closest.
Yes, I thought that size was about SF3.
The single family attached is the other, and that is,
I think the lot size is close to the 0 lot line
Is it?
district you have.
minimum lot area on that is 2,500 or something like that. Square feet. Single family, full SF4, ordinance is 5,500, they're recommending, or their standard would be 4,000.
Okay.
Smaller lots.
Okay. So that, no, everybody understand that? This is a little bit smaller than what we're used to. I want to make sure everybody's clear with that. That was what I wanted to clear up. Looking at and remembering what we talked before, that was my recollection as well. This is something I think we're willing to accept because of where it is. This is not what we normally accept, but the way this development is, and I think adding the green space helps, and adding the ponds helps with the overall aesthetic. Remind me, how many single-family homes are we talking about? Not the
204.
Okay, 204. And then the townhomes and my
61.
How many?
61.
61. Okay, thank you. Sorry, my iPad just died. Excellent. I think I'm clear on anything else. Okay. All right. I think I'm good. I just wanted to make sure I was clear and everybody else was clear with those numbers. That's what we're approving. But we'll get a.
Just to be sure we're crystal clear, also the side yard setbacks are also smaller than our standards, so it's going to be a smaller lot, but also closer together. So,
okay.
And there's a spreadsheet attached to the ordinance also that kind of defines or contrasts those standards.
Okay. Council, other questions? Questions, comments? We are okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We are in a public hearing, so that means anyone can speak on this item. Anyone in the audience have any questions, comments, concerns? Now is the time to voice them. No questions, no comments. At 7:37, I take us out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion.
Is this actually number 11? Just want to make sure.
This is number 10.
This is 10. We're still on 10.
Okay. I had my papers all. So our motion is to accept this ordinance revision. Is that what I'm to understand?
You could just make the motion to approve the ordinance as presented.
Okay.
You'd like.
Then I make the motion that we approve the ordinance as presented.
I'll second.
Valerie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Excellent. Thank you all. All right, so that was 10. So moving to 11. So at 7:38, we're in a public hearing. Consideration action regarding approval of subdivision ordinance amendment for Article 9, construction standard details. For that, Director of Public Works, Rick Trice.
So I owed a debt of gratitude for Councilmember Big Horse in our discussion about the zoning ordinance and some of the antiquated sections. It's a monumental task really to look at subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance. And part of that is Article 9, which are standard construction details. During the last over a year, of course, we haven't worked on it continuously off and on, but staff and Kimley Horn have reviewed our construction standard details, have made revisions. There's a summary of the changes to the details in your packet, and Article 9 will replace the old Article 9 in its entirety with this new set of standards. What these standards do principally is try to update our standards to be consistent with what's being used in the region. In that light, we've increased some of our rebar sizes and our concrete. We have as far as standard products and recognizing new technology. We try not, or we don't specify products in the details any longer. We've developed a standard products list, approved list, that vendors or contractors can use, and that would be flexible as new technology, new items would come on that list that would be acceptable for use. So that would be reviewed by the city and the city engineer and accepted. We've deleted some details, added some details. Again, I think there's a summary of changes. So if you have any questions, otherwise we recommend approval.
So I have a general overall question. So based on what our friends at the legislature did to us 2 years ago, is this enforceable? Is this just a recommendation? How is this? What does it mean now?
This is infrastructure and not building standards. So yes, it's enforceable. So the city attorney tells me otherwise.
So the legislature did not discuss any of the innards, I guess.
No,
Okay.
no. The preemption bill only applies to exterior materials for commercial and residential buildings.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Helps me understand. All right, other questions, council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just one short comment. One, this was actually a work plan item, feedback from council to address ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
I want to recognize Rick and Kimley Horn for a lot of work. It was pretty tedious going through construction details. Doug and the Belt Mill crowd left as well, but they've been great, very accommodating. And Bryn Meredith should run for president. He has helped us all out, and always a phone call away.
Come on, don't do that to Brand. Be nice to Brand.
Why would you wish that on Bren?
No, just want to thank everybody. This has been a lot of work recently, especially for Rick.
Well, I appreciate Kimley Horn's involvement. Is that why Dana's here? I wondered why she was gracing us with her presence. So I don't want to hear her talk, but I'm just glad she's here to support us. Other questions? That was a cheap shot. I apologize. Other questions, council, on this? This is a public hearing, so if anyone has any comments, questions, now is the time to voice them. If not, at 7:41, I take us out of a public hearing, and I will entertain a motion on item 11.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the ordinance as presented.
Thank you, Patrick.
Second.
Valerie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you all. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. All right, now we're on 12. Item 12. At 7:42, we're in a public hearing. Considering action regarding a request by Community League Mission to rezone Lot 6, Block 6, Town of Saginaw Addition, 320 South Belmont, from single-family SF4 to neighborhood commercial. For that, Director of Public Works, Rick Trice.
Thank you, Mayor. Community Link recently in the last year has acquired this residential lot just to the south of their main facility. They have a development plan where they want to incorporate that into their mission, which will require them to do a shaded or a sheltered path between structures between the two lots. We had told them that there would be two steps to allow that to happen. First, to rezone the property to be consistent with their use, and secondly, following rezoning, they would replat the property to incorporate that plat into their overall development. They're here tonight to answer any questions. If you have any questions of me, I'll be glad to try to answer those. We recommend approval.
Council, questions? Concerns, questions, issues? Anything? All right, this is a public hearing, so the crowd is glad to speak, allowed to speak. Any questions, comments on item 12? We'd love to hear them right now. If not, at 7:43, I take us out of a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we rezone as presented.
Thank you, Patrick. Mr. Tucker seconds. All those in favor? Those opposed? Excellent. Thank y'all. Sorry you had to hang around so long. Item 13, consideration action regarding approval of preliminary plat for Lot 1, Block 1, Senior Living at Saginaw Addition. For that, Rick Trice.
This is the first phase of the final platting of that property, located about 800 feet west of Amber Drive. Of course, it's an assisted living facility. They will only be developing the cottages initially. There will then be also a main structure for resident housing. at your January meeting, I believe you'll be seeing the final plat and site plan for approval. So, again, this is the first part of that process. P&Z recommended unanimously approve the preliminary plat.
We didn't receive any comments of the I'm trying to think if I looked at the P&Z. There were no comments from the neighbors.
No comments
about
from
this?
P&Z, and again, they were unanimous in their
Okay.
recommendation for approval.
And I've not seen any concerns from the neighbors either, so.
No.
Okay, excellent. Council, questions? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the preliminary plat as presented.
I'll second.
A second? All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you all. Thank you, Rick. Item number 14, consideration and action regarding ordinance 2020-27, adding section 6-42Bs to chapter 6, animals of the Saginaw City Code. For that, Gabe Brayan.
Mayor and council, one of the appealing things in working for a city is provides a person an opportunity to be interested in a great many things. I have learned about bees, as I'm sure you all have. So before you for action this evening is the ordinance that was from Denton. You'll recall at a previous meeting, Michelle Burst presented, answered questions, provided information. So a pretty simple ordinance that Bryn's office drafted. It requires that hives should be kept a minimum of 50 feet away from dwellings, that there's an adequate water source within 20 feet of hives. Adjacent neighbors must be notified that bees are being kept. There's a registration form that is required to be submitted, and there's a number of hives outlined based on lot size. So it's also a penalty provision, standard citation if the ordinance is not followed. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council, questions? Ms. Bighorse?
Looking at, where is it? Section 1A1, it said all hives shall be located a minimum of 50 feet from any inhabited dwelling. I'm not sure we have property that has that 50-foot distance. I thought when Shelley was here, she was talking about a 30-foot distance from dwellings.
I don't believe that's the case because this is exactly from the city of Denton.
Okay, so perhaps
that's what she
misspoke.
drafted.
We can certainly revise that to 30 feet if that's your preference. But
Well,
yes, this is.
I'd like to see how many of our properties do have that 50-foot distance, in order for anyone to qualify to have a hive.
I would guess, just thinking out loud, somebody in a backyard, between somebody's backyard and the adjacent property owner, there likely would be 50 feet. I mean, most of our lots would be smaller lots, 55 plus 50 feet wide, and then we have at least 10-foot separation. So it sounds reasonable, just off the top of my head.
Unless you're in Belt Mill.
Yes, Belt Mill.
Yeah.
That's right. No bees in Belt Mill, more than
I
likely.
know where I live, that probably would not be a problem, but I know I have a pretty good-sized lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some of these other properties are a little smaller.
Sure.
Well,
So
Cindy, would you like to change that? What do you think?
Well, I'd like to, at least, go back and look at some of the, lot dimensions and maybe see if that's really a feasible number. So,
Okay. You want to table this item? Or you want to approve it? It's pending, or what do y'all think?
yeah, I'd like to do that. And then also on Section 1B, where you're talking about the number of hives permitted for the lot size. Again, is this up to 1/4 of an acre that you could have 2 hives?
That's my understanding. That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was clear too, because again, a lot of our lots
Sure.
are not
Or not a 1/4 acre. That's
quarter of an
correct.
acre.
Yep.
So I'm okay with that, but I would like to, make sure that people who want to have hives, if 50 feet is going to be adequate for them to do so.
Okay, would you like to table this?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Then Cindy, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we table, I'm looking for it, ordinance number 2020-27.
I'll second.
All right, second. All those in favor of tabling the item? Opposed? Excellent. Thank y'all. We will look forward to seeing this again. Item 15, discussion of future facility and bond project planning. For that, City Manager Gabe Graham and Dolph Johnson, Assistant City Manager.
Mayor, happy to have Dolph back. He's a pretty faithful viewer from home, so there's been a number of meetings, including the last meeting he was attending remotely. We have talked about a bond election for some amount of time. We have a number of projects, as you're aware, that would be eligible. The difficulty for the City Council is that any items that would go to voters in May 2021 have to be decided upon by our first meeting in February with the ballot proposition. So what we've kind of outlined in the cover sheet of your item is going off of the Citizens Bond Committee recommendations, tackling several of the projects that are left. Streets being probably the highest priority. We find ourselves in a favorable situation. Dolph, I believe, has confirmed that Tarrant County is looking at a November 2021 transportation bond, which there'd be no tax rate impact, from what I understand, so it's within existing capacity. Eligible street and transportation projects would receive a 50% match. This is not unusual for the city, so I believe Longhorn was constructed in that manner. Bailey Boswell, the west phase was constructed, so we're able to follow that same method hopefully in the future. Our two largest reconstruction projects, as prioritized by the bond committee, include Knowles, all three phases. So as you're aware, it's currently under design, and design should complete in early 2021. The construction cost for Knowles is $18.4 million. Substantial portion of that, especially in the northern section, is related to storm sewer, storm drainage. We've got some flooding, localized flooding issues in neighborhoods that needs to be addressed. The other project would be McElroy, which is essentially from Saginaw Boulevard to Old Decatur. That totals approximately $18 million as well. This substantial cost related to a low water crossing, or for lack of a better term, just to the west of Knowles.
No, he said McElroy phase was 18 million also. This says 10.9. Did I read it wrong?
Yeah, that's Knowles to Saginaw Boulevard, phase 3.
Oh, okay.
And then Knowles to Old Decatur.
He decided them both together. Okay.
Yeah. So the potential streets project total would be $36.3 million, pretty substantial number. Keep in mind that could be eligible for 50% match. If you'll recall from almost 2 years ago now, when we did our facility assessment, we talked about kind of a streetscape idea along McElroy to create kind of a downtown type feel leading into McElroy. We may potentially incorporate some of those pedestrian type elements in these projects. Facility-wise, the library was the next priority for the bond committee. There's since been some discussion regarding a combined senior library facility. The library board has basically indicated they would like as much dedicated library space as the council would allow. They're really excited to begin to educate the community about the potential there. PGAL did a cost estimate a couple years ago, part of our assessment for a library space only of 30,000 square feet at about $17.66 million. That's noted in the cover sheet. Our current library next door was proposed at that time, or identified as a future project, to accommodate future municipal court uses, meeting space, as well as public works staff. We may potentially look at a council chamber next door that's larger and can accommodate more in attendance. So I know it's a lot of information. I would like to get your feedback so that we can continue consideration and preparation for potential May 2021 election. I will note that the recommendation, we haven't noted any parks, money for parks improvements. I talked to Mark McCliney this morning. So let's say voters approve Knowles Drive, for example, $18.4 million. Let's say our friends at Tarrant County match 50%. Voters would authorize the full amount, yet we would not spend the full amount because we'd have a match. That would give the council an opportunity to use COs for other projects, or we could defer to a later bond cycle to address any specific projects like a senior center, citywide park system improvements, what have you. There's a little bit of unknown, as you're aware. With Belt Mill, we have an opportunity for a future facility. What that is, yet to be determined. That more than likely would be funded by a public improvement district, so it's a great opportunity to consider that factors in. The other, I included in the packet, I really don't have much to add, but in light of, in fact, Ms. Stewart's here, one of our previous meetings, we mentioned maintenance on existing facilities. Our log cabin has a lot of work that needs to be done. That's detailed in your packet. Community center, a little less. We've had some preliminary discussions with staff about, in the future, moving seniors to the rec center for some amount of time. They would have a larger kitchen facility. They would have a dedicated access with their own door, as well as more space there for programming. The log cabin is at a point where it needs substantial maintenance, and it's likely not the long-term solution for our senior needs. It's approximately 4,000 square feet, and our space assessment said we needed approximately 15,000. So I know it's a lot of information. Looking for some general feedback to let us know if we're on the right track or what your thoughts may be. Kim could address the tax rate impacts, and we can talk about capacity,
So-
whatever detail you'd like.
As we're proposed, it would be 3 separate items. It would be, Knowles would be 1, Michael would be 2, library 3. Correct?
That's correct. We may, if it's the council's pleasure, we may, have to be approved by bond council, but we may consider the renovation of the existing library as part of one item. That would be something bond attorneys would tell us would be eligible.
So it could be 4, but okay.
Well, we may do it. The short answer is we can do it whatever manner you please, phase and project-wise, but as proposed, I think Knowles, McElroy, as all phases, so 2 items, and then likely 1 item for a new library plus a renovation of the existing library for other uses.
Okay. Well, that brings the point. Can we talk to Kim about some tax implications? Because this does not come without a price, as we all are aware. So what would the voters be voting on?
The attachment does not have the total. What the attachment is it shows you the original. So I started with the bond committee recommendations and the original cost estimate, which is that bottom of that first column, $100.3 million, and then from that, we just issued $20 million in COs. So subtract that out, and that's where you've got that's how we get the 83.3. The columns to the right are just laid out for. It's not exactly how we would sell bonds. For example, we wouldn't sell 7.1 and 2.4. We'd likely combine that, but just for illustrative purposes and to kind of see where the tax rate impact would be, that's why it's split out. So that's not set in stone. It's just illustrative purposes only. But if you were to issue the 54, a cumulative of 54.7 million, you would have about a 10 cent increase in your tax rate on the debt service side. And that little bottom square at the bottom shows the impact of issuing that for the different values of homes there. Now, we scheduled the 20.5 over the next 5 years or so to keep the tax rate flat. So anything over and above that we issue is going to have a tax rate impact. Our next drop in debt where we will be paying off old debt to make some new capacity will happen in 2027. So that's why you see that very last column when we issue debt, more debt in 25, 26, it's not going to really have an impact on the tax rate. That's where we're going to see some more capacity there.
So,
all of this is just, again, preliminary estimates where it's based on 2% growth in the assessed value. If we have some of these developments come on board, you know, the Square and Belt Mill and the other Miss White's property development, all of those things would lower the tax rate impact because our value would go up.
My question is, if I'm a voter and I'm voting on Knowles, how much is, if I approve Knowles, how much is that going to affect my tax rate? Just Knowles.
Knowles would be about 2.1 cents.
Okay. Then what if I approve McElroy, what would that be?
Both phases?
Yeah, I think we're going to put both phases as one item, right, on the ballot?
Well, it's going to depend on the timing too. So this timing here, if we waited till 25, 26, you would actually not have an impact. You could do, I'm sorry, I'm looking at, McElroy, I'm looking at McElroy Phase 3. So that 10.4, and really the renovation of the library, City Hall, the 5.8, based on these assumptions, which could be to the good or to the bad, you know, I can't tell you exactly, you could basically issue that additional 16.2 million debt without a tax rate impact. So it's going to depend on the timing.
Well, we got to put something on the ballot. What are we going to put on the ballot?
Well,
We're sort of
like
going
I
around
said,
here.
if you want to issue the full $55 million, it's going to be almost 10 cents.
Well, what would be, and back to my original, so Knowles would be 2.1 cents. What would be McElroy? Both phases, 3 and 4. If we, the whole thing, if I approve the whole thing, if I'm a voter, I approve the whole, 18 million, what would that hit my taxes? Would that be about 2 more cents?
Yes, but again, it's going to depend on when it's issued.
Sure, I mean, it could be 1 cent this year and 1 cent the next or something like that, but total would be, I could expect a 2 cent impact to get McElroy. And then I move on to the library. What's that going to cost me? Because this is what we put on the ballot, right? We'd say library, $17.6 million equals 6 cents of taxes, or whatever the heck it is. 2 more cents of taxes, whatever. That's what I'm trying to get to. All this stuff is, I want to see it laid out a little better as how it would go to a voter, and this is what I'm trying to get at. So would a library be 2 more cents? Is it about 18?
Let me ask you a question, Mayor. I guess fundamentally, are we wanting to buffet style this? Or, I mean, my suggestion is with it being this small amount of projects and with a good mix of both facility and road improvements, to buffet style this is probably more damaging than it is good.
You think put it on one big?
I think it's one deal.
That's what we're talking about. Okay. That's what I want to talk about tonight.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this timing equation, and if you were to look at from the issuance of the bond, so this isn't going to hit the same cycle as our fiscal calendar, but if we went from May 21 to May 22 and May 23, that first 2-year period, we would start Knowles and finish Knowles in that 2-year period. We would start McElroy in about the midpoint of that period and finish it in 24. That would be the first phase of McElroy. The second phase would be starting in 23, ending in 25. So that's essentially 21, that's 5 years. All the road projects are done. And then the library project, and it could start in 22, May 22. That leaves us plenty of design time. So it could start May of 22. And then we would start, once the library is moved into, we would start this project, which design would begin sometime in 23 and it would wrap up at 25. So all of this is a 5-year time horizon at $60 million. We've spent 20, so we're sitting at 80 million. It's 20 million less than what we were talking about, right? And we still have the parks to talk about, quite frankly. parks aren't addressed here. And we're still $20 million shy of what we were talking about this time last year. So in my mind, what we're really talking about here is, do we buffet style this, or do we say, hey, this is our mission as part of our 10-year plan? Do we want to stretch this out another 20 million and have projects beyond the 5-year time horizon? Do we want that to be the case, or do we want to just keep projects within a 5-year time horizon?
And how much do you want to put on one ballot, too, right?
Or how much can we physically burn off? I mean, Dolph is one person. We'll kill him. Right, Dolph?
Oh, don't forget the senior citizens.
Yeah, and that's a good point. The Senior Citizen Center, we'd like to address it. I mean, there are some other ancillary things that aren't mentioned here to propose on the bond. I think the senior citizens, if it's combined with the library, then it would happen in the same 5-year horizon. If it's not, it could happen beyond the 5-year horizon. But I think we just need to be careful about taking on too much project load in a 5-year time period. It's just, we are less efficient in managing it, so what we do gain in the marketplace, we lose in our own inefficiency.
And Mayor, I'm also concerned.
Yes.
This is there's been a lot of discussion and controversy over the $20 million bridge project. And the economy was good.
I'm sorry, would you?
The bridge.
Okay.
And the economy was good when we voted on that. Now the economy is not so good, and then we're asking for 4 times as much money from the citizens. And clumping it all together in a single package, I think, is risky at this particular point in time. If we were like we were in 2013, I would feel more comfortable. I just hate going up asking people for $80 million right now.
Sorry to disagree. But yeah, I think it's a manageable amount for a bond election. It's, many bond elections are, I don't know, much, much higher. And I do like the idea of putting them all together as one item. And the amount of tax increase, I don't remember ever noticing that on a bond election. Whenever I have voted, do they always have that on there? Like what the tax increase would be?
In our past bond elections, we have put out information. It's not on the ballot. We have put out information to the voters, letting them know the potential impact on the tax rate based on the timing and the amount on the issuance of the bonds.
Because I think it would be important in the background information to, it's quite possible it would be much less of an impact. I don't know how to go about wording that and don't want to mislead
What we've
anybody.
done in the past is come up with basically a worst case scenario, but we use very conservative growth numbers and projections and inflation factors on the construction costs. So our track record has been that we told the voters this is what it could happen, and again, that's what we consider to be worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. We've always been under the tax increase based on what we told them it could be, but that was when times were good. Who knows what the future brings? But we do give as much information as we can on what could happen to the tax rate based on whatever the current information is.
And then there was the idea of adding on to the rec center for a new senior center. Would that be included in the remodeling part of it, or would that be an extra thing later?
That's not included.
Could that be included in that remodeling?
I think, certainly we can talk about that, but I think that could be a future.
Or I'm sorry, adding on to the rec center instead of, I'm sorry, I got that wrong.
Yeah.
So that's not included in the bond?
Part of the
But it-
rationale with the way the bond committee left their recommendation related to parks was just general parks improvements, because pretty much any existing playground we have in the city, minus Willow Creek Station, is about aged out and in need of replacement, shade structures, other things. We're embarking upon a Parks Master Plan update, which will set us up for hopefully future grant opportunities. So just kind of practically, I think it may make sense to consider waiting on parks improvements until we have those documents.
Another
But
reason.
just a consideration.
I'm all for parks and parks improvements.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we do have these new developments coming in that all include parks.
Good point.
Correct.
And so,
And I think through our, we can't do it overnight, but through our maintenance budget, we can address things as they come along,
And
a
then-
piece at a time.
assuming that Fort Worth does the 50% match,
Mhm.
they're going to make a decision in November? Is that what we expect, or?
So it might have Dolph speak to that.
I want to preface these comments with the preface that the county staff gave me, is this is all very preliminary.
Right.
And subject to change. But their latest directive from the Commissioners Court was prepare for a transportation bond election in November of next year. Now, there's a lot of work to do between now and then. And as part of that process, the preliminary schedule calls for between January and June, this coming January, to put out a call for projects and put together a ranking committee and criteria and their policies for the Commissioners Court to approve. But basically what they'll be doing is coming up with a list of projects countywide, probably 200 or so, I would guess. 200 million, probably 125 projects countywide. So we would submit the projects that we think would be eligible for matching funds from the county. And then that way, they know how much to ask for from the voters, county voters. And then we have an idea of whether or not those projects will be funded, which projects will be funded in the city. So, again, this is all very preliminary. They're working on the policy now for the Commissioners Court. We've been through this before. Kimberly Horn prepared submittals for our projects we talked about earlier, specifically Longhorn and Bailey Boswell. In fact, Longhorn was one of Dana's first big projects here. That project was actually built with two other funding sources. We had federal dollars come through the COG, a third, and then a third from the county and a third from the city. So we actually only paid 33 cents on the dollar for that.
Beautiful road, by the way.
So we would not start any construction on new roads until we found out if we were going to get a 50% match, or how would that work?
If you go to the voters and ask for the full amount, we can build the road whether or not we get the matching funds or not. We're not going to issue a debt until we know how much we need. So, if that answers your question.
So if we had started construction and here comes the 50% match, what's the timing on all that? How does
Well, again, I wouldn't start construction on a project till we know.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
We do the design work first. We get the design work done, right?
Well, we will have design work done on Knowles, but design is a reimbursable element of the county's matching funds. So, if, for instance, we haven't designed McElroy yet, maybe we get 50% of that design cost included in
I guess I thought if we had design already in the can, that might put us at the top of the priority list.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I'm sorry. If we had design already in the books, that might put us at the top of the priority list?
I'm not sure if that's part of their evaluation criteria, but it should be.
Okay. I thought if we were shovel ready, we might bump up.
It makes sense.
That's what I was hoping for, yeah. Okay. That's sort of, so we
If I might just make one more thing clear. So when we go to the voters, it's just for the authorization to issue debt, right? We're not going to issue debt all at once, and we're not going to issue debt until we know we're moving forward with the project. So there's two different things that we're talking about, just to be clear about that. You're not going to automatically issue debt, $60 million worth of debt all at once. We're asking for the voters for permission to do that, but we'll do it as it's necessary for the projects and as it makes sense to the tax rate.
That's an important point also in the educational process to inform people of that, because I'm not sure they know that. And I also think that the normal everyday citizen thinks that if you approve something on a bond election, it is definitely going to get done. And most of the time it does, but not always, and sometimes it takes years. So I don't think people understand that either. I don't know if, that should be part of the educational process.
We just went through a live fire training session on our bridge.
Yeah.
It took years, and it got done. So political climates change, but when a commitment's made to the community, it's serious.
And one thing to remember about the tax rate on the bridge, we used, if I recall, about half what was authorized tax-wise.
That's right.
If I remember. So we did not use the full amount. So, but we have to say to voters, we're going to use this much, this is what you're authorized, because we could. We don't know. And we're also hoping if they approve $59 million that we're going to get $15 million back from the county, but we don't know. That's a hope. We're pretty confident we'll get something from the county, but we can't say definite. So, but you have to be transparent and say it could be this much, it could be this much tax hit, this much dollars. Yeah.
So that brings up a couple of opportunities for us, though. If we're at 60 million all in with our road projects, and we do get 50% match, we then have $15 million to spend somewhere. So it's one of those things that I think we need to identify what that $15 million could potentially be used for in this bond.
So we would have to state that bond, the question open enough so we could use for other things. So
Yes, if savings are yielded by other participating entities like the county, the surplus dollars or savings dollars would be dedicated towards X, whatever X might be.
Okay.
And X could be the senior center, X could be the parks projects, it could be any number of those things. But I think that we should designate that in the bond language.
I need to, I talked about this with Bryn briefly. I need to verify that with Leroy. I think the challenge is, since we're likely saying savings from streets would go to a separate project type, you have to bring a separate project. Is that fair? Or that's probably a Leroy bond counsel.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to venture to guess. I would ask Leroy.
Yeah,
how
but
that
we'll
would work.
clarify that.
So we might have streets money might have to go to another street project.
That's right. And we purposely word the ordinance when we issue debt, the authorization, so that we are general in saying street and road improvements and related utilities for that very reason. So if a particular street project we have savings in, we can use it for another street project. But I don't know if it's a different category of project.
We need to ask bond counsel if we can stretch the definition of street to something.
Street or senior
It doesn't
center.
necessarily have to be like a vertical structure. I'm just thinking about, are there infrastructure improvements that it could?
Could a sidewalk in a park,
Yeah,
walking trail
exactly.
be?
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, can it be flat work? Can it be, what can that definition
No, that's a good point.
include?
I can tell you that the legislature has recently made it clear that you have to be more specific than less specifics.
So if we are more specific in what that means, then it could expand to flat work or infrastructure and not necessarily facilities. I'm just trying to think of vocabulary words that might fit our needs.
So there was one item I forgot to mention, and this has been, I think, talked about maybe for 5 years or so before I came, but there was some thought, or still is thought, to relocate Veterans Memorial Park somewhere along McElroy. We've got plenty of opportunities with future projects, whether it's at the corner, potential future library site, what have you. So I think that would be accomplished as part of all of our future plans. The existing site, and many of you were at the Veterans Day service, is just too busy to enjoy. So it would make sense to have here in McElroy, kind of the heart of the city.
Another suggestion that I have is just thinking back at the park, since we're at 60 million, what would be the harm in putting a $5 million amount for parks improvements for aging parks, existing aging parks, so that we're at least touching the parks in this bond program? Not anything real big, but $5 million can go a long way. Especially, I mean, when you think of what the cost was for Willow Creek Station, it was 10% of that.
Yeah.
So you could put surfaces on basically every playground that we have currently with that amount of money, and allow the parks group to prioritize how that money is spent.
Yeah, that's a good point. And another thing I might mention, Dolph has worked on the ADA, and Kimley Horn on the ADA assessment. So we've got lots of ADA compliance issues and lots of facilities, but parks as well. So yeah, any amount of money to improve the system, we could find eligible projects.
Would everybody be okay with adding another line item for parks? Yes. Onto this? That would be 4. That would be Knowles, McElroy, library, some kind of park or something. Everybody okay with that?
And where does the senior center fall into here?
That's what I was trying, y'all keep forgetting seniors.
That was one of the top 3 things identified by the bond committee, and I don't hear it being discussed as part of this package.
So I think in the interim would be to move them to the rec center, which would give them more space, a larger kitchen, dedicated access.
Keep them on the side of town.
Yeah, kind of keep them in the middle heart of the city. Like I say, we have some opportunities with future PIDs that we may consider, or we may come back in the future for a standalone facility. There's lots of options there.
So out of curiosity, if we did, let's just say, $1 million worth of improvements at the recreation center that were dedicated specifically to enhance that facility for seniors' use, that use could be used from here on to whenever. And then when we do add another facility, they still have dedicated space at the recreation center and their own dedicated facility. If we're going to use that as a safe, kind of a harbor point to springboard into a new facility in the future, I suggest that we earmark some money to improve that facility specifically for seniors' use, wherever we're talking about within the rec center.
Sure.
And I think the $5 million we're talking about in terms of parks, we could reduce that to 4, and then $1 million of that goes towards dedicating space in the existing rec center.
So what are we going to do with the space with the rec center? I mean, are we going to shortchange our citizens?
I'm sorry?
On space in the rec center by dedicating this area to the seniors?
And Keith may chime in, the rec center during the week and during the day is tremendously underutilized. So we feel like we can move senior programming there without losing rentable space. It's rented out on the weekends and Fridays, which the seniors aren't going to be in there at that time. And we're not going to lose anything by moving them there during the week.
Even during the summer? Because you have summer camp during the summer. And what's that going to do with the seniors?
We do have summer camp during the summertime, and they've used the gym and classroom space. They also use the aquatic center too, because they do go on field trips to the aquatic center. The seniors wouldn't lose their space. One of the things with the the seniors, generally speaking, at the center right now are, well, prior to COVID, are there from about 8:30 in the morning until about 3:30 in the afternoon, and then they close down, so that frees up that space after 3:30 or 4 o'clock. When most of our classes take place at the rec center right now, most of our classes take place morning from say 8:30 till about 9:30. We do have an occasional class here and there, and then in the evening they start picking up at about 4:30. But during the day, it's very, very hit or miss on what classes that we do have there.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is because, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
is, over at the library, I've talked with several seniors that have to go to the library after 5 o'clock because there's nothing available for them because the senior center is closed. So, a lot of our seniors, don't get to utilize, and I was kind of hoping that we could, have this, a dedicated, let them have something shiny and new rather than giving them, hand-me-downs. Nothing against the rec center.
I have a question.
None taken.
When you say dedicated at the rec center for the seniors, when you say dedicated, nobody else is going to use that space, is it?
Well, so that west, the west entrance, there's a separate entrance there.
Yeah.
That's closest to the kitchen. That's the most likely.
What I'm asking is, the big problem with the senior citizens, even at the senior log cabin right now, is that people get into their stuff, when we rent that out, which I understand. And they have a lot of stuff there, so they need something that's theirs, that the kids aren't going to go in, you're not going to rent it out, you're not going to let anybody else go in their stuff. Why can't they have that?
I think they can, and I think during the week what we're trying to say is there's minimal conflicting space needs, at least during the day,
Right.
from 8 to, say, 3. And like that kitchen, I kind of visual sometimes. I went on Friday and looked at it. It's bigger than the existing kitchen. It's got newer appliances. It needs to be used. It needs to be loved, and we can accommodate that there. Now, Councilmember Big Horse noted, peak time in the summer, we'll have to jostle some things around with day camp, but there's enough space there.
So you're not going to rent out the rest of the space that the seniors get to use, right, for anybody else, Monday through Sunday, Sunday through Sunday,
The log cabin
at the rec center?
at the no, not during the week. No, that would be their
No,
space.
not during the week. I
we
mean,
would have
so they have
some.
their dedicated space that's just for them, and
That's
nobody
the
else
idea.
is going to go in there.
Right. They would have some classes. I think we have.
Gabe, her question is, I think, weekends, right?
Yes. I'm saying, okay, let's say this is a rec center. This is where the seniors part is, right here, okay? Nobody's going to come into this space 7 days a week except for seniors.
Sure.
Okay, but you're
That's
not going
not
to
what
rent
I
out that
understand.
space at the rec center for anybody else, even on the weekends. You're going to let the seniors have it.
That's not what I understand.
I wanted to back up to something you said, and it escaped my brain at 8:26 this evening. I've been up since 4 this morning. One thing, talking about summer camp is it was the thought, and what Gabe was talking about is, they have their dedicated entrance on the west side, right by the kitchen, and the thought was to have at least those 2 classrooms down on the end, which is 1,100 square feet, and the second one is 1,200 square feet, so 2,300 square feet, which is actually larger than what they're using right now at the senior center. Okay. That would be their 2 rooms. During the day, if the other 2 rooms are not being used, they have access to it. During summer camp time, the seniors would still have their 2 rooms at 1,100. We call it Room D and Room C. They would still have those 2 rooms, and the other 2 rooms could be used by summer camp.
Right, but
Which
say
is
it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening.
1,300 and 1,400 square feet plus the gym, and they also the summer camp also uses a stage, which off the top of my head I couldn't tell you, but it's probably a good 1,000 square feet at least.
But say in the evening time, say there's karate classes or Zumba classes or, basket weaving classes, they could use room C and D. You could use room C and D after the senior hours close. Is that correct?
They could.
And that's
but
what I
thought-
think Valerie was saying. She does not want those rooms to be
Right,
utilized.
I'm saying they could, but the intention is that the seniors would be in those last two rooms, and that would be their rooms.
Because they complain about other people getting in their stuff.
Yeah,
and
I
everything. I
understand.
don't think it's fair to them.
And their workshop, for crafts, and that would all need to be secured and taken care of.
Do we have room to secure, do we have a place to secure stuff for them?
I mean,
So $1 million can do a whole lot.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind the temporary
add
thing, but,
cabinets and
I think
lock
the seniors
boxes
deserve better than having a hand-me-down.
That's
Well,
one
and-
thing I'm saying, is I think
No,
they
I-
deserve just
it's-
their space, and when you say dedicated, I want you to dedicate it to them. I don't
It's-
want a door being dedicated so they can walk through by themselves. They got to have some that it's their space.
Okay.
Point's well taken.
This was a brainstorming, this was me adding $1 million to something is where this started. And the fact of the matter is we all understood that the senior center was going to be attached to the library at one point. Okay, and that's changing. Now, if we're all on board with it still being attached to the library, guess what? We can add it to the library right now, and it will be built with the library. But I don't think anyone on this dais has agreed to that yet. So the permanent home for seniors is still in question. All I'm trying to find is an opportunity in the next 5-year horizon to put them somewhere besides the log cabin. That's all I'm trying to find. And then give them some space that exists today in the interim that they can continue to use into the future. Even when their new facility is built, it still belongs to them. I think they need their own space at the rec center. I believe that they should have their own space at the rec center. I believe they should have their own space at the library, quite frankly. They should have their own space in both places. So those are just my thoughts, and all I want to make sure we're doing with this 5-year plan, time horizon, is that this $5 million that we're adding to the staff's recommendations benefits other areas of our city like parks and seniors. And I think $1 million will go a long way at the rec center to carve out a great place for the seniors to have from here to the end of that building's life, and we can use it in the interim while we decide what we want to do for the seniors. If Belt Mill goes in and they say, hey, this place that we want you to build as part of the PID, it winds up being a 15,000 square foot senior center, I mean, that's a great place for them. And it's all walkable, it's within stores and all the things that will be developed out there. But that's not something that we would pay out of bond dollars. That would be paid out of the PID, and it would be paid out of that development. So all we're doing here is carving out some money to handle this while these things are in play. That's
Well,
really
and
all
I
I'm
understand that, but at the same time, I was looking at what the bond committee wanted, and, the senior center was one of those top 3 items.
Certainly.
And it looks like it's just kind of getting shoved off to the side so we could do these
Well,
other things.
no, it's certainly
And
not.
I'm just saying,
I agree, but can all seven of us sitting right here this moment decide what we want to do with our seniors? I don't think we can.
Well,
I think there's division there. I don't think that we're all on board with building a brand new standalone senior center when half of us are saying it should be attached to the library. It should be attached to the recreation center.
Mhm.
We have to work through that.
I understand.
And for us to get a decision made by the 7 of us in time to go to the bond marketplace, to the voters.
Which is one of the reasons why I want to discuss this now, because, we don't have a lot of time to do this.
Can we make the decision is the question. Can we make the decision what to do with the seniors in time?
I think the bond committee, as a matter of convenience, recommended pairing the 2 facilities together. I think that the architect initially recommended separate facilities, and if you're going to do a combined facility, to put the seniors with a recreation center, because that is more common in the marketplace to have recreation combo senior centers. The library board, and Rick Russell, as the president, was here last time, has said, we want as much dedicated, and Ellen's not here this evening, as much dedicated library space as they can get. So the compromise from the bond committee was, maybe we just pair the 2 together. I think, to Councilmember Farr's point, long term, it may be a better option. to wait for future opportunities, but take care of the library. That's basically where we're at.
Mayor, if I could just follow up on something both Gabe and Councilmember Farr said, and going off of what I'm hearing is, it was never the intention to give the seniors any type of hand-me-downs. That is never the intention. That is not the future of what I believe that what the city is looking at. It's just a temporary home until the council or whoever decides what the permanent final home, or not final, that permanent home would be. It was just a temporary home, just like when the city council was not city council, when the city hall was being renovated, they had a temporary home at the fire station. Same type of thing. And then they moved back into wherever it was, it turned out being here. It was never the intent of Gabe or anyone to make this a hand-me-down type of thing.
And I understand, but I'm just saying the top three things, whether it was attached to something else or to the rec center, or to the library, or to the fire station, or, to the animal shelter, the senior center was one of the top three things on the list for the bond committee, and I just feel like they're just kind of being brushed off to the side a little bit. And, and I understand temporary, and I can appreciate that, and I appreciate the rec center. And like I said, I meant no disrespect by the comment, because I do appreciate everything that you've done and that you've even opened up to the seniors in the time of this pandemic. But I just feel like the spirit of the decision of the bond committee is not being met.
Does anybody on this council want to add another, it'd be $20 million to this bond package for a senior center? A standalone senior center would be every bit of $20 million, maybe more. Are we willing to, we're at $60 million now roughly, are we willing to go to 80 on this bond package in 21? Because that's what it would take. Mary? Yes, ma'am.
Before I answer that, I understand your comment about hand-me-down. I understand we wish we could build a state-of-the-art, wonderful, best thing that ever lived. But if you think about it, temporarily moving them to the rec center or eventually adding on to the rec center to make a separate senior center as an addition to the rec center, that is a huge upgrade from what they're doing right now, from where they're meeting right now, going to the rec center right now. Kitchen way better, parking way better, newer facility, more room. So everything is a huge improvement just to temporarily go to the rec center right now. And when the bond election committee was meeting, of course, they didn't know about the possible free community building in Belt Mill. Things change all the time. And, I think there are a lot of moving parts, and I think that's a good solution for right now. And, maybe if we save this money on the roads, we can add on to the rec center and make a real senior center attached to the rec center.
So why don't we renovate the library for a new rec center? For a new senior center.
I had talked to Gabe about that because I think
because we got a new city hall. This building is how old? 2014?
I think the land that we have set aside for the library would not accommodate enough space for both of those facilities. Is that correct?
No, I'm
for a
saying,
library and a senior center?
I'm saying the library that we have now, make it our new senior center.
Oh.
And then, we still have the rec center as our temporary home.
Well, but that, the courts and the
Municipal court and initially in the facility assessment, municipal court, based on growth, would go next door.
and public work.
As well as public works admin would move over there,
How big
customer
is the
service
building?
functions. Sorry?
How big is the library?
10,000 square feet.
So split it between the seniors and the municipal court.
That's not a.
That makes no,
Not enough room.
that doesn't make sense based on the facility assessment. The need was 15,000.
Yeah, it's
So we're trying to, I hear you, I really hear the concern, but we're trying to think long-term and our ultimate build-out capacity to meet the needs.
Well, and my point is that, you know, with this space that we have for the municipal, it's not 5,000 square feet, right?
Here?
Here.
6,000?
It is.
Yeah.
And even if, what, the seniors will be having, what, 28 over at the rec center? Or 23 at the rec center?
Just the 2 rooms are 23.
23?
And
Plus-
they're currently
plus-
in about, I think it's like 18 or 1900 right now.
Plus
So
the
if we
kitchen
give
and-
this, you know, 3,000 out of the 10, I mean, it's still bigger, and that's another temporary home until, I'm just saying, there's other options out there that we could probably look at.
Sure, but that assumes that the library is built and that building's vacated, right? I guess sequentially, I'm not understanding.
You mean the seniors have to go somewhere today?
Correct. Yeah.
That's the main
They can't go next door absent a new library facility, so that's assuming a library is approved by voters and built, which, like I say, we'll do what we can with what we're given.
I want to point out to all of us that in this political climate, this bond will not pass unless all 7 of us agree with it. It won't. That's simple. So I suggested the $5 million for the parks, and then carving out $1 million to do something in the interim while we're seeing what Belt Mill yields for us in terms of a new facility. It's a great opportunity for us. The suggestion you have, Cindy, with respect to using the library as an interim place, I think what that might do to us, the $5.8 million that we've got set to the side to renovate that facility into the municipal courts and public works building, that would have to sit idle on hold until a decision is made while the seniors are using that facility, and might subject us to additional inflation costs on that $5.8 million. I'm just thinking through, what can we as 7 people decide to do for the seniors? What's the best thing to do for them in light of the fact that we know this Belt Mill project is moving full steam ahead and may pay for the senior center? The bond committee thought that the taxpayers were going to have to pay for the senior center. And if we have an opportunity for a concentrated group, investment group, through these apartment complexes and the commercial development associated with Belt Mill, will pay for that senior center. If someone had said that to the bond committee at the time, I'm pretty sure the bond committee would have said, let somebody else pay for it besides the taxpayer.
Okay, so I'm going to play the devil's advocate again. Sorry about this, but where do most of our seniors live? Are they going to live up in the Belt Mill area?
That's a good point.
They're going to have to drive up there,
That's
and
a
they
good point.
complain about having to drive anyway.
That's a good point.
You know, and I'm trying to look at this from all angles, and I'm really not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to be fair.
So what
To our
do you
most
suggest to do with the seniors in the 5-year horizon?
Well, you know, I don't think we need to make a decision like right tonight. I mean, we need to think this through. I think we have ideas thrown at us, and I don't think there's a possibility they may not be the best options.
Well, February is 4 meetings away,
I understand.
and I
So
think
we
that
got some discussion to do and some thinking to do, and questions to ask.
I'm open to hear your suggestions. So what do you suggest?
Ooh. I want to go back and I want to look at the letter from the bond committee. I don't have that on me right now.
I mean, we can have Travis from the bond committee come here and present again, and he can talk and discuss about it as well.
You know,
He was here tonight, we should have made him stay, but he would be a good source to
He doesn't
discuss
live
their
that far.
thoughts.
We can call him back.
We could.
But, you know, and I know the seniors want to get back together. They want to be in a place that's safe, you know. I know that Keith, again, please, I mean absolutely no disrespect. But I think a dedicated place for them is going to be very important. A place where they can store their craft supplies, where they can store their personal belongings, they can store their food. They don't have to worry about people coming in and taking their paper plates and using all their toilet paper and their hand sanitizer and, whatever else they have.
You have to worry about that at the log cabin too.
That's true, which is why I think that the senior center was on the bond.
That's their biggest
From the bond
complaint, is that everybody
recommendation.
goes through their stuff.
We don't share City Hall.
Yeah. That's why I say, when you say dedicated to the senior citizens, it needs to be dedicated to the senior citizens.
Locked.
Not be rented out, locked up, something that they can feel safe at, because they feel like they're kind of invaded, I guess, because people go through their stuff and they pick the locks on the door and they unplug the cameras, when they're in there, they dance on the tables and stuff, so.
And
you see what I'm saying? If you're going to dedicate it to the seniors, make it dedicated to the seniors. They deserve it. A bunch of them have lived here almost all their lives.
And I know Mrs. Stewart has been over at the community center, and because they quilt there once a week, and and she sees that, when it's rented out, they're still dealing with tapes on the walls, and the bathrooms are not replenished, and they do have a closet that they use that's locked, and they have the key. That's a little dedicated space for them, but these are senior citizens, and especially with this pandemic, we're a lot more aware of how germs are spread, and I think we need to protect them better than sharing a building with a bunch of people.
Mayor, I might add that and I may be corrected, but if we built a standalone senior center, I don't know that I'd want to rent it out. I'd want it to be a senior center.
I
That's
agree.
what I'm saying, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, you wouldn't have that opportunity to combine a library senior facility because you'd have community use in the evening. So that's a fair point, fair consideration.
What did you say? Say that again?
So the bond committee, again, as a matter of convenience, recommended pairing the two, library function, senior center function, put them together, 30 and 15, 45,000 square foot facility. Most seniors are finished with the facility at approximately 3 or 4. That frees up space that would be used by the community or for library activities in the evening. Yeah. So to your point, if you want dedicated space that is not rentable, I don't know that a library senior center makes sense.
That's true.
Which is why the library board has said, City Council, give us as much as you can because we want it for their programming. It's a great point and a good consideration.
But why couldn't you lock off that space to the rest of the world if it's tied in with the library? They get 30,000, the senior get 15,000.
Then why wouldn't you do? I don't know that we're accomplishing much and the hours are waning, but I don't know why you wouldn't just have a separate facility or have a separate part of the rec center that's completely locked and not available for any other use.
And that's a possibility too.
Mm-hmm.
But you could still have it attached to another building. It's just separate entrances.
I guess I'm visualizing, I'm looking over here at what I'll call the Bud Starnes property for lack of a better word. The library sitting there, the Kiwanis Park, the Veterans Park there, and the other side of that, a senior center. Yeah. Separate buildings, separate as one big complex.
That would be awesome.
We're going to have the assisted living place right across the street. You don't want to have your senior center over on the other side of town across the railroad tracks.
So
I appreciate what Beltmill's trying to do, but
the nice part is there's enough space with 5 acres, I think, to accommodate 2 building footprints.
To put all that, yeah.
So
But again, it's a matter of dollars.
Something to work, yeah.
It's a lot of money.
So 15,000 square feet at $300 a square feet is $4.5 million. Yeah. It's not 20. So I think if we look at, I just don't want to hang so many ornaments on our bond Christmas tree that the whole tree falls over. And I understand the importance of every ornament we're hanging on it right now.
Well, then maybe we need to consider some other ornaments to take off.
So, and which of those ornaments would you take off of staff's recommendation?
Probably the City Hall.
So we go ahead and leave municipal court meeting in here.
No, we could renovate the library because we're building a library anyway. But I don't see why they would have to change up this building.
So
Is it just because of the court that you need a bigger city hall?
So
'Cause nobody comes to our city council meeting.
you're right. We can accommodate, give you a good example. The mayor gets requests to talk to Boy Scout groups every once in a while. We can accommodate large groups in a setting with existing space, absent the rec center. So there's some general meeting space. This building, when it was built, was probably pretty close to capacity. We're at capacity now. Public Works at some point in the future, admin needs better space.
Well, let me ask you a question. If it's just because of the larger gatherings, our new fire station's going to have a big meeting room, isn't it?
And we have an amphitheater back behind City Hall.
If
That's
you'll
never
go
used.
back and look at the space needs analysis that was done for City Hall, you'll see that was for the ultimate build out of the city.
Right.
So there are going to be needs for HR, finance, water department, courts. It's not just court.
Then
It's
we
not
let
just-
Belt
but there-
Mill build those.
I'm sorry?
Then we let Belt Mill dedicate those spaces instead of the senior center.
Well, all I'm saying is look at the space needs analysis. It tells you how many square feet we're going to need for all the functions to build out of the city hall. And we can meet those needs with the space we have next door and this building as it sits today. So for efficiency reasons, that's why that was proposed that way.
Okay, but we were only going to add, what, 8 employees between now and complete build-out?
No.
No?
No, about 50. I mean, our ultimate build-up
For City
population.
Hall, not altogether. for
administrative
City Hall.
staff I was referring to.
It was like 6 or 8, wasn't it?
That sounds fair. 8 additional
Yeah.
employees plus Public Works.
But we're also talking about bringing the Public Works folks here as well.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify Cindy's statement, though. What I see this $5.8 million is dedicated to do is to convert the library into the municipal municipal court complex and public works facility. That's what the $5.8 million is there for, not to renovate this building. That's not what I understand.
That's correct. So between the two buildings, we have enough space, enough square footage. You know the condition of the Public Works facility and how bad that is. So if we could at least get the administrative functions of Public Works moved down here into a newly renovated facility and make that a field office out there, and still have enough space left over to accomplish all the growth needs we have for the City Hall functions. And there's different configurations, making a council chambers in that building is an option, or there's all kinds of ways you can do it. The point is we have the square footage we need between the two buildings to accommodate that.
So the $5.8 million is not renovating this building. It's to convert the library.
That's correct.
And build the connection between them.
That's correct.
So is that what you were proposing, to remove the $5.8 million from the Christmas tree?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would we do with the library facility when we build the library and it's a vacant building?
Not sure.
Okay. But I still think a standalone 15,000 square foot senior center, which is basically core construction, it's the restrooms, it's the kitchen, is probably going to be the most expensive square footage inside of that facility, and the rest of it is open rooms.
And we could probably get by with 5,000 square feet. I mean, how big is the log cabin right now?
It's 4,000 square feet.
It is 4,000?
Correct.
Okay, because I thought we said they had more room over at the rec center than they do at the log cabin.
That's of usable space.
The big room at the senior center is about 1,800 square feet. The two rooms, C and D, together, just those two rooms, the 1,800 square feet that I referenced at the senior center is just the big room. It's not the kitchen, it's not the office space, it's not storage, it's not the domino hall in the back, it's not the
JD,
restrooms.
that's JD's room. J.D. Johnson's room.
And maybe we don't look at 15,000, maybe we look at 10,000 square feet, that's still over twice the size of what they have.
So 10,000 square feet with the additional square footage carved out for them at the rec center? Because I still believe seniors should have space of their own at the recreation center.
Even if we build them their own building?
Well, yeah,
I think they
and
could,
again.
if they had their own
Okay.
building, like Todd said, they could get across over here to the rec center.
But the rec center is not going to cost that much money.
But if it's 10,000 square feet, and now we're in the $3 million range.
Yeah, you could get to your 15,000 if you fenced off the kitchen that's there existing and gave them their dedicated space.
So
at some you know better than I do, some heavily discounted cost because you've got the existing building footprint
and its infrastructure.
Yeah.
You'll have roads, you'll have different things.
You've got
all
parking.
of that part of two facilities. So here's what I would suggest is instead of the $5 million, we do $4 million towards parks, and we do $4 million towards a senior center. That's $8 million. And that's added to the $60 million. So it's $68 million, puts a standalone senior center somewhere.
Like
It puts-
TBD.
To be determined.
Right.
Which I'm totally on board with it being right here in our municipal corridor.
Well, especially since we have the assisted living coming in here.
It makes perfect sense. If we can fit it on the same piece of property that the library sits on, that sounds to me like the best place for it. Kind of tucked away, and it's its own little entity. So instead of $60 million, as staff is recommending, we're tacking on another $4 million for parks projects, which is 1/3 what we said we would do for parks a year ago. We said $12 million.
We said 12, we didn't say 20 for parks?
It was 30 originally.
It was 30, but I think we had carved out $12 million in our $100 million bond program discussion. So
A lot less, yeah.
that's a third of what we had communicated at $100 million, and $4 million should build us a 10,000 square foot facility for seniors to be determined. That's
You're just building the building.
that. So the $3 million should put 10,000 square foot of real estate, developed and built vertical construction. $1 million should furnish it. That's $4 million.
With a nice
So-
kitchen for them.
Yeah,
'Cause they like
and they definitely want a nice kitchen.
But again, and just for consideration, the intent of the facility assessment was to make 30-year decisions based on ultimate build-out population. So happy to do whatever you direct us to, but that's taking 5,000 square feet of dedicated space, correct? It only making a 10,000 square foot facility.
But
you're
Belt
saying
Mill is still an option for 5,000 square feet. So we could have, there are
Multiple.
opportunities for
That's true.
us that we can leverage.
Mhm.
I get where Cindy is coming from here. As high a priority as this was for the bond committee, we need to have a bond solution. Otherwise, I understand her to be saying we're kind of betting on the come. We're betting on this developer doing the things they're saying they're going to do, and we're going to pass a bond before we really know that. So, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just afraid that I think it's worth $8 million, $68 million for the bond program, just to know that we're all on the same team. Because if we're not on the same team, it won't pass.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think we can put the senior as a standalone facility in Belt Mill. I think that's too far away from the center of town. I
And
think
you
it
know, a
needs to be
lot of
here.
us are fixing to be seniors, so y'all better plan it for us good, is all I got to say.
And some of us already are.
I know we are. Shh, Cindy, don't say that.
All right, so where we are is back to the original Knowles, 18 million, East McElroy, 18 million, library, another 18, right? Roughly 18, and then 4 for senior center and 4 for parks, roughly 68 million, approximately. So we had set a 10-cent tax impact for the 60. So what would another 8 be, Kim? A couple more
Over there
cents?
thinking,
Probably a couple more cents, maybe, or,
I don't have an answer for you. The total, the maximum at 60, over 60 million would be 11 cents. 68, again, it depends. If it's after 26, after fiscal year 26, then it may not be as big of an impact.
but what would we give to the, what would we educate the voters with? What number would we say? We'd have to say worst case, which would be 11 or 12, right? Because we don't know the timing today. We can't say that.
60. Well, I have to get that number.
That's fine.
I didn't contemplate that large
I understand.
bond election.
Let's,
No, it's,
let's-
you're on the
let's-
spot.
Yeah, no, let's go away and think about some of this stuff and what the numbers would mean. I think we've got a pretty good, the bones of a good plan. We're not completely there yet. We can continue to work on this. We've had some good discussion. I appreciate the input. Anything else on facility assessment before we move to the last item? Everybody good for now? We'll continue this discussion, continue to work on it. So I appreciate the staff. Thank you all for the work you've done. I know it's a lot. Okay, so item 16, discussion of senior center programs. Gabe.
Yeah, so in the past couple months, Rec Center staff has tried to accommodate some senior programming at the Recreation Center. We've now had 3 cancellations due to COVID. One was because a patron of the facility had COVID, so we had to cancel the Friday bingo. The most recent episode was a staff member was out for 2 weeks with COVID. I think in light of recent cases in Tarrant County, it'd be best to pause senior programs for some undetermined amount of time. We're alone in offering senior programming. Keith could tell you that we're also attracting people from other cities, which in this environment, in a very vulnerable population, is probably not something we want to pursue at this time. That's my opinion. We intend to keep the Recreation Center still active as normal based on what the county judge allows us to. We have a senior exercise class that we would propose still continue, but the actual, bingo, the Friday programming, what staff has found is that everybody seems to wear the mask when they're in the gym playing bingo, but in passing, in between coming out, it's not the case, and I feel that it's just not a risk worth taking at this time, that we should take some sort of pause. So if there's anything Keith wants to add.
Following up on what Gabe said about the attracting people from other communities, is in the other communities they don't have these programs, they don't have the bingo and things like that going on, but they found out that Saginaw does, so they're coming over here, and we're limiting the amount of seniors at one time. We have it spaced out in the gym. We're limiting it to 25, and when people are calling to get on that list, sometimes we're getting people from outside the city. A question earlier was about how many residents versus non-residents, and senior centers in Saginaw is a little different than the rec center, where most rec centers are generally an 80-20, give or take 2 or 3% as far as resident, non-resident. But for our senior center, it's about a 60-40, 60% resident, 40% non-resident. We are surrounded by Fort Worth. We have Lake Country just to the, get my directions wrong, west of us, and we have a large number that come from Lake Country and, quite frankly, even Lake Worth. So we do have a lot of non-residents that are coming to our center.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough situation, and I hate to do it, but I agree with Gabe. I think just for the safety in the short term, I think the numbers are getting worse. It's not getting better. I wish it was getting better, but it's not. It's spiking, and it's only going to get worse as we get into colder weather. People move indoors more. So, yeah, I would think I would be fully supportive to shut down the senior center, the senior system program for the short term. We can review it in the future, see when we want to open it back up. Hopefully it won't be too long, maybe a couple months, but we're not really sure. So, yeah, I would agree with that. What does the rest of the council think? Ms. Copeland.
Do other rec centers offer senior exercise classes during the pandemic, or do you know? Did you already have a senior exercise program that was
Not at the rec
connected?
center. A lot of the seniors that did come to the rec center would walk on the trail.
Just on their own?
Or not trail, but the inside the gym.
But it wasn't a dedicated
Correct.
senior exercise class?
Correct.
Because I feel very strongly that we should not be offering senior programs. That is the segment of our population that is most at risk for having a bad outcome if they do get sick. And every published guidelines that you read from the beginning to now encourages seniors to stay home as much as possible. So if we, the city, offer programs for seniors, we're saying we're not going to follow these guidelines. We don't think it's important for the seniors to stay home as much as possible, and we don't think that so much that we're going to offer them programs. So, I think that's a very bad stand to take as a city. I just happened to watch the Channel 11 local news this afternoon, and it's getting so bad. I already felt that way, but I feel that way much more now with the cases rising. The Tarrant County Health Department issued a statement today, just this afternoon. They cannot be more strict than the governor guidelines. But they are asking people to please voluntarily self-isolate. They are asking businesses to voluntarily cut back. This is brand new news. You'll hear it tomorrow and, for the next few days. They can't enforce it. But the point is, that's how serious things are getting. And so for any city to say, well, come on, seniors, we don't necessarily think you need to stay home. We want you to come play bingo or whatever. That's irresponsible. So I don't even think we should offer the exercise classes that are strictly for seniors. Any senior on his or her own can go to the rec center and avail themselves of any class that they're eligible to attend as a human being. We aren't going to say, no, you're 65, you can't go to the watercoloring class. I'm making that up. But we aren't offering we should not be offering specific programs for seniors. We are, County Judge Whitley also did say in the beginning, when all these guidelines were coming out, he would like for every city in Tarrant County to be uniform in what they do. So as far as I know, we're the only city that is offering specific classes for seniors. I had another very good point that I totally forgot. But I just think we're sending the wrong message by offering classes for the most, the population that is most at risk. That is not responsible for a city to do.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Anybody else? Other thoughts?
May I counter that?
Sure, go ahead. Cindy?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on that respect. I talk to seniors almost every day. We're dealing with depression because they're at home alone. And I don't know if either of our chiefs here could attest to that. I talked to Gabe about opening up, for 2 or 3 hours a day, 2 or 3 times a week, possibly an exercise class. Nobody's going to hold a gun to their head and tell them they have to come. This is strictly voluntary. They also know that they need to wear their masks and things, and as far as I know from the people I've talked to, they've tried to be compliant in that area. I think we need to address depression. I think it's a huge problem that we're dealing with. And the reason I talked to Gabe about this is one lady said she lives here in town, her daughter lives in town, her brother lives in town, her son lives short distance out of town. Nobody comes to see her. She lives alone with her dog. Her family would drop groceries on her front porch. I caught her twice at the ice cream gallery, and she pleaded with me, please do not tell my daughter or my family that you saw me here. She just had to get out of her house. She was going crazy. And then her dog died. You know, now she's at home alone. I think offering them a safe environment to go to is not a bad thing, and I don't think it sends the wrong message. I think it shows that we care and we're listening. And, you know, I think we need to, you know, address their needs. And and that brings me to the question, if we're going to cancel everything at the rec center, are we going to cancel adult coloring at the library, which is for seniors?
No, normal programming would exist as is to the extent that we're allowed by the county. So, you know, part of the, I understand it's a very emotional and sensitive issue. Part of the concern is coming directly from staff that have concerns for the health of the people they serve, the seniors.
And
so the senior center director and Keith have legitimate concerns that we are putting people in a potentially unsafe environment. This was made clear when our senior director, who wears a mask, PPE as we all do, came down with COVID recently and was very sick. She just returned to work. I certainly have compassion and understand nobody likes COVID, but if you're asking me or telling me to open a facility to the public, I want to be very clear that it is against my recommendation and the recommendation of staff.
Well, I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm asking.
Sure.
And, you know, it's just one of the things that, you know, I want to talk about.
I
And if
think
you're going
that
to
if
close
we
it
have,
at the rec center, I mean,
I think
why
that if there's
close it?
mental health needs, that we have a good partner in the county, that we probably need to address some social services, that we need to get those folks information and get them mental health services.
And then we need to.
So please coordinate that with the chiefs, and we will take care of them. I've called Tarrant County, was it MH Mental Health? A couple of times.
MHMR.
MHMR.
I have
And
one
we will
question.
take care of those folks.
I have one question. Is there not a way that you can keep it just to Saginaw citizens and to maybe go down in count and keep them away from each other?
Yeah, like 10 people instead of 20.
I'm just asking a general question because, and I'm going to say this very bluntly, I've been open since day one. I've done everything the county's asked me. I've had one child that tested positive, but because his mother had it, and when they did the test 2 days later, it was negative. They said it was a false positive. So, and I've done everything they said, and if you do everything they said, you're pretty, I mean, you might, there's no 100% way you're not going to get something. But could it not be maybe 3 or 4 seniors every other day or something just to help some of them out, the ones that are just here in Saginaw? I'm just trying to think of a way that we could be safe and do something.
I'm incredibly cautious because Gabe mentioned earlier that there were 3 cases, and one of them was our senior center director,
Right.
one of them was a resident, and the other was me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I had it, and I was out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've watched my mother and father-in-law both be hospitalized and be in ICU.
I'm not saying it's not bad.
I know, but the doctor said that if we would have taken him a day later, he wouldn't have made it.
Right.
I'm watching right now my best friend, who's only 2 years older than I am, which makes him, what, 23?
Okay.
54, who's had fever for 9 days and can't get rid of it because he has
I
COVID.
understand that.
I'm incredibly cautious and
Is there something that we can do for the seniors to take to their house?
Yes.
Put it on the doorstep and walk away.
yes, let me answer that for y'all.
Great idea.
Save Gabe a little breath. One of the things we're doing is, as you know, if you don't, I'll tell you, our seniors are a very social group. They love to be around each other. And I don't know, everyone in this room, everyone listening, everyone around the world has been affected by COVID in some way or another. Our seniors have been affected pretty tough because of their normal social activities. Every year, at least I've been here almost 17 years, and every year at the Senior Center, they've always celebrated Thanksgiving with a Thanksgiving luncheon, covered dish and or catered, and both. It's not going to happen this year. I highly recommend that it does not happen. So what we're going to do, and I'll tell you one thing that you have as council members, you are very blessed to have an incredible staff here in the city of Saginaw. You are very blessed to have a very creative staff that cares about the citizens of this city. Our Senior Center Director, Christy, our Recreation Center Supervisor, Vicki, came up with a brilliant plan to offset not being able to have this annual Thanksgiving tradition. And what we're doing is we are purchasing, working with Cracker Barrel to prepare covered dishes or covered lunch or Thanksgiving type dinners, individual boxed dinners. This Thursday from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we sent out cards to all of our senior members. Who is interested, please RSVP. This Thursday from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, we're providing those free complimentary Thanksgiving dinners with pie, I might add, which I'm going to kind of hoard those and tell them, oh, we're out. I'm just kidding. No, we're going to provide that for them. They're going to drive up. We're going to walk out and hand it to them. They'll never get out of the car. They'll never be around a group of other people. They'll stay in their car with their mask on. We'll hand them their dinner. They'll drive off.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, is there something we can do for the seniors and say, drop it off their house? Not food. I'm saying like something to cheer them up, something to make them feel like they're still around. You know what I'm saying? Because
I think that's one of the things that we're doing to let them know that we do care about them. We are thinking about them.
They know y'all care. That's not it. It's that they're there by themselves and they don't have very many people to go see them. So if somebody could if we could make up some kind of plan through the city, I don't know, make up some kind of goodie bag or something. Just to cheer them up. A thing of flowers, 2 roses, that would cheer somebody up. You know what I'm saying?
One of the things Christy did, and was very thankful by our seniors was when all this happened. She's done this several times. Is she called all of our seniors and said, "Hey, just kind of checking in on them. How are you doing? We're thinking about you." Just telling them how much we care about them, just checking in with them. And she's done that several times.
Yeah.
All right, what does the rest of the council think? We've heard from some folks. Mr. Tucker? Okay. Riley, you got anything?
No.
Mr. Farr?
I just wish that our seniors were a little more tech savvy.
Yes.
I mean, that has really helped a lot of the younger generation because they're able to stay in touch. There's a hole there that seniors don't have that ability to connect with multiple seniors through Teams meetings or GoToMeeting just because it's complicated for them. I have to agree with staff that we can't knowingly put people in harm's way. We can't do that. If there are ways in which we can allow people to safely interact with each other, I'm wholly on board with that. But putting them in a room, especially with individuals who may be suffering from varying degrees of dementia, just problems that come with age. I lost an uncle this literally Sunday to COVID because he had dementia and went into a place not wearing his mask and contracted it. It took him in a week. So our aging population has a number of things they're already dealing with. I think that we need to be very mindful of the conditions that we allow them to be put in. I don't think that we should be enablers of danger for that age group, but I think that we should be enablers, as Valerie is talking about, to do things for them outside of the facility. And I love the creative things that you guys are coming up with, but somewhere in that creative facility that you now have power over, quite frankly. We got to figure out a way to engage them and do it regularly, not just because it's Thanksgiving. While we're in the middle of this pandemic, I think that we should be spending what money we normally spend catering to these seniors, going out to the seniors and figuring out ways to stand in their front yard and maybe have 4 or 5 or 6 city employees somehow conduct a virtual bingo game. I'm just trying to think outside of the box to where we are actually engaging the seniors on their turf, not entering their houses, but they can see people who are actually coming to them and engaging with them. I like that idea, Valerie. I think that's the spirit of what I hear Cindy saying. But to put them in this room, even if it's 2 or 3 of them, I'm not on board with that. It's enabling danger. So we've got to get creative, and we need to do it quick. I think that what you guys are doing is about the best anybody can be doing under the circumstances. We just need to figure out ways to do it better. Big challenge. I know we're up to it.
I know the couple of seniors I talked to said they're looking forward to Christmas lights. It would be great to have like a reverse Christmas parade. All the seniors meet over at the Halfley Center, line up their vehicles, and just go look at Christmas lights and stay in their vehicles.
You might be able to get hold of the churches, because the churches are just as worried about our seniors as we are. And they might can come up with a deal also to help us out with this, so that way.
We have Rotary.
We definitely need help because we're incredibly short-staffed at the moment.
Yeah.
It's myself, Vicki, and Christy, and one part-time.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you could reach out to your council, and some of us could help with this stuff as well.
I'll help do whatever, if it makes the seniors feel better.
I haven't heard from Mr. Beasley. What are your thoughts, sir? You good? Okay. Okay.
And you
He could drive through on Thursday. He wants one of those Cracker Barrel meals.
I'll save you some pie for sure.
I think the deadline to sign up was today.
All right, so Gabe, is that good? We're clear? All right, so thank you all. Thank you for your hard work and your creativity, and let's keep working at it. But for now, we will halt senior programs, TBD. We'll address that in the future. All right, no executive session, right? Thank the Lord. All right, I will see a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? 9:21. Thank you all.